All right, good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. and it is Tuesday, June the 14th. This is our Town of Spencer regular board meeting for the month of June. And with that, we do have a quorum. We have all but one of our members here tonight from the board. And so with that, we will begin with an invocation given by Alderwoman Pat Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pause for just a moment and reflect. Let me be a little kinder. Let me be a little blinder to the faults of those about me. Let me praise a little more. Let me be, when I am weary, just a little bit more cheery. Let me serve a little better those that I am serving for. Let me be a little braver when temptations bid we waver. Let me strive a little harder to be all that I should be. Let me be a little meeker with the brother that is weaker. Let me think more of my neighbor and a little less of me.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we have our agenda before us, and I guess the first question will be to the manager and clerk. Are there any additional items from staff that need to be considered tonight? No. Okay. With that, are there any adjustments from the board to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adopt the agenda before you? So moved. A motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Morgan. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And our agenda is set for tonight. We will move forward with a few recognitions, and we will start with our Spencer Cares cleanup event, and Alderwoman Sledge has a recognition there.
I have a graphic that I think we can put on the screen. On Saturday, May the 21st, and Friday, June the 3rd, the 28 individuals shown on this graph came out to lend a hand to help their fellow residents across the town of Spencer with cleanup around their yards and houses. We were able to provide assistance to about 20 families and properties, and I want to thank all of our staff and volunteers who came out for Spencer Cares. From the town of Spencer, our staff who were participating were Stacy Craven and her daughter, Genasia, Sky Allen, Peter Francis and Rocco Francis, and James Osborne. From our fire department, we had Chief Michael Lanning, Dakota Anderson, Adriana Martinez, Austin Waller, and Austin Fred. From our public works, Joel Taylor, we had Luke Taylor, Mark Leffler, Sam Moore, Dakota Wilhelm, and Benny Hedrick. And the volunteers from the board, commissions, and citizens, we had Mayor Jonathan Williams and Jackson Williams, his son. He had from the board Andrew Howell, Lincoln Howell, and Ellis Howell, and I was there to take notes. From the HBC, we had Leslie Ann Talbert, and we had citizens, Jean Jeanerette, Tracy Harris, Randall Scott Geddes, and Bob Willis. With these 28 people, we got a lot accomplished, and everyone that we touched seemed to be appreciative. We worked hard, but it was a pleasure to be able to do that and serve our citizens of Spencer. So thank you all for all those who participated, and thank you for putting it all together for Sky and for the refreshments and water bottles that were along with us. So thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. And then I believe you have another note about the summer feeding program.
Oh, I do want to mention that Central Methodist Church is doing the summer feeding program this year. It started on June the 6th and will run Monday through Friday at 11:05 a.m. each day. So any child from the age of 3 to 18 is welcome to come and receive a free meal there at the church. This coming Wednesday, tomorrow, a group called Bread Riot will also be there, and they will be furnishing free produce to the community. So if you want to come out, they have the June the 15th and June the 29th, and then there are 2 Wednesdays in the month of July. The Bread Riot folks are a group that actually was started back during the Civil War, housewives who got together to protest about increasing prices for goods and services that they needed. And that program has continued. They collect produce from local farms and distribute it to communities at no charge. So come out, bring your kids for feeding, and come out and take advantage of the Red Riot on Wednesday. The Central Methodist Church, that's just a few blocks from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. All right, Mr. Muhammad, you have a recognition to make.
Yes, I would like to make a recognition this evening in reference to the 8th Street Ballpark. First and foremost, Mr. Fitzbarger and William Knowles. You know, I want to make sure that I give a strong thank you for them for all the years that they kept the ball field going. Many, many years. Every day they would go out there like clockwork, as I was informed by some citizens. And there was a dedication, scoreboard and field to those gentlemen. It was 2 weeks ago during an all-star tournament that we had for the young men out there at the field at that time. And if you all haven't been out there to the ballpark, please make a visit out there. Has been a lot of upgrades, and it's been beautified, and it's still being beautified. And hopefully we will get more young men to come out there, young women, and, you know, those that are disabled as well, so they can participate in the sport of baseball. We also would like to thank Mr. Rusty Miller, all of the coaches, the Friends of 8th Street Park, and all the alumni and the generous donors as well for the contributions that were given for this beautification to take place, as well as the town of Spencer for doing what we do as well for the park. The minor league division had made the All-Stars, and we won the local tournament here in the town last week. And this past week, up until yesterday, we played until we were defeated in Clemens. And the guys had a great run this season. They did an awesome job. You know, in my book, they're still all-stars and winners. I was able to attend both games on yesterday and on Sunday. So they did a great job representing the town of Spencer while they were in Clemens, and they showed a lot of great sportsmanship. And I've seen a lot of growth from the young men, because I'm a coach as well. So again, I just wanted to make sure that we recognize, you know, all the contributors as well as those that put in all the hard work and dedication in order for this program to continue within this town.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. And we have 2 additional recognitions from Mayor Pro Tem.
First of all, I want to thank and recognize the Community Appearance Commission, which has worked really, really hard all throughout the town. Most of us are aware of the community garden, which is down on 2nd Street on property owned by Spencer Presbyterian Church. But if you haven't visited it, please make sure that you do. You'll see some raised beds. And someone asked me, why didn't they just till the ground? Why are the beds raised? I said, well, they told me they did it so anyone can use it. It's handicap accessible. So I thought that was very, very nice to hear that. You can go and pick herbs. You can pick produce. There's no charge. There later on will be a stand where things will be displayed. So please visit it. They had a cookout and games, and they showcased the garden, and they raised $1,000 on June the 5th. So they have been a tireless group working with that. And my other recognition goes to the North Loran graduating class of 2022. The town of Spencer wants to wish you well on your next journey, whether it's career, family, college, travel, whatever you decide to do. God bless you and good journey.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So the next item on our agenda is to conduct a public hearing pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 159-12, and this is to consider public comments relative to the town's proposed budget for the upcoming 2022-2023 fiscal year. So with that, we will now open our public hearing. If there is anyone that is wishing to speak in regards to the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Seeing none, Ms. Craven, have we received any written correspondence on the matter?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Thank you very much. So with that, is there a motion to close the public hearing on the upcoming budget?
So move.
A motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Howe. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And the public hearing is officially closed. Okay. With that, we will move into our public comment. We do have quite a few folks that have signed up tonight, so thank you very much for coming out and being willing to speak to us tonight. And so we do have a list of folks that have signed up, and so we will move forward. We have 7 people that are signed up to speak publicly, and then we have a few written responses that we will read those tonight, just so that the board, everyone does have those. I believe those were provided to you ahead of time, so you're able to review them, but we'll go ahead and read those aloud as well tonight. I will remind those that are here tonight, you will have 3 minutes for public comment. I'll call you up in order. We will provide a timer, so you'll have access to the time so that you will know once you have gotten, I think we're going to do a 30-second warning, and then we'll show you that time is up. So just pay attention to the screens. And I would ask that as you speak, we know that one of the issues tonight has a lot of interest, and I would ask that everybody please, thank you for coming, but please make sure that you're courteous, that you are respectful with your comments, and that they're productive in the comments we received tonight. So we'll go ahead and open it up, and first is Kathy Wagner. And if you will, when you come up, please state your name again and address for the record for us.
Yes, I'm Kathy Wagner. I live in the north end of Foster Avenue, that's 28 Foster Avenue. I also have a business here in Spencer. I am concerned about changing the Highway 29 from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. If you think back a few years ago, they even widened 85 to accommodate the traffic. Now, whenever there's an accident out there, I know that they have changed the emergency lanes to go up to Long Street. But take in consideration, if you will, if they close it at the river, they're still going to come 29, and the ones that know to come 29 will still come 29. You change that down to 3 lanes. Where's the traffic going to go? It's bumper to bumper, and then can you imagine the school bus trying to get kids to school? Emergency vehicles trying to get through? My concern is the safety. And my understanding, they're going to start it down at Longsbury Road, where, in my opinion, needs a traffic light anyway. That's a bad intersection. If they start it there, then you're going to have Hendricks that back up at night. You're going to have people, instead of using the turning lane for turning lanes, to be using it for passing lanes. And that's going to put extra work, not only on our officers, it's got other things that should be done, in case there's more violent crimes that need to be looked at. You're taking them away from those areas, and you're still going to have a safety issue. You've got emergency vehicles, fire trucks go by every day, or ambulances every day, just about going down to the dialysis. You're going to cause a problem here of safety getting from one place to the other place, and then you have to go back and look. We have to evaluate, because people's going to use 29. They've done it for how many years now? Because that was the main area before they put in 85. And people know to turn that away. Years past, several years past, several police departments in the past, there was an accident out on 85. routed it up Salisbury Avenue. That's fine. North and southbound was bumper to bumper until you got down to about the Moose Lodge. Right before that,
Thank you, Ms. Wagner.
then you had a problem there.
We appreciate the comment.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner.
Next on the list is Larry McGinnis.
I've been here a couple of times. I really never had much to say. It's a great town I moved to. I bought a home here in Spencer about a year ago today. And I've lived here since November because I was on the contract in Florida. So that's been, what, 7.5 months? I'm still trying to wrap my head around why we're cutting down the lanes. Are we putting bicycle lanes in? Are we putting suicide lanes in? What has there been traffic studies? Is there an engineer that did this? Because it's all about bicycle lanes. I got to be honest with you. In 7.5 months, I don't think I've seen a dozen bicycles on the road. Now, that's not saying they weren't on the road when I wasn't going up and down it, but for the most part, I don't think I've seen a dozen bicycles the whole time. The most I've seen the other day was 4. They were sitting off the side road. That was it. That's the most I've ever seen. So I don't understand. I can tell you this. I volunteered for Winterfest, and I stood out there and directed traffic. It was nuts. And from what I understand, it's supposed to be even bigger this year. What are you going to do with all the traffic? And that's just one event. I mean, from what I understand, there's industry coming to this town. What are you going to do with all those people? I mean, you start cutting lanes down and everything, and once you paint the road, unless you're going to go through and mill it all up, it's it. Once it goes down, it's down. Unless you want to spend the money to, because I did it for 30 years. This is what I do. I just retired from it. So milling and striping and all that, that's what I did for 30 years. So the thing it is once you put the lines down, depending on whether you're putting hot extruded thermo or if you're putting epoxy down, once it goes down, it's down. So unless you want to bring in a grinder and grind every line up, and then it's really going to look nice, because you're going to tear everything up. So I'm trying to figure out, what is it we're doing? Are we putting bicycle lanes in? Are we putting suicide lanes in, or what? Because you go from 2 lanes to, I don't know, or 4 lanes to what? 2 lanes you're going to, or 3? Because you're going to put a turn lane in the center. Oh baby, you've ever seen them things in action? I have. Especially when you're sitting there waiting to turn, and somebody's coming up the suicide lane, and they're looking for a store over there, not paying attention that you're there. Next thing you know, they're in your hood. I've seen it a dozen times. I mean, that's like the worst thing you could ever do. And if you're putting bicycle lanes in, I haven't physically went out there with a measuring tape and measured lanes, but just physically looking at it, I can tell you there's plenty of room to put 2 bike lanes in on each side, if that's what you're doing. So I don't know what you're doing, so I'm just trying to get the feel of, that's why I was listening to, what everybody was saying, because I wanted to hear what it is that you guys are trying to do, because like I said, once you put the paint down, that's it. And if you get a bunch of traffic, you're going to have a bunch of, these people are not going to be happy, especially the lady here with the business in town. People can't get to her business because, you know what, they'll go elsewhere. Plain and simple. I mean, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time either. I'd just make a left and go out to 85 and go put up with the traffic that way. But I'd like to keep here in town. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. All right. Next on the list is Sherry Morgan.
Hello, board. I know you guys don't know me at all. So, my name is Sherry Morgan, and I'm a resident at 310 Salisbury Road. I would like to share my concerns on the restriping of Salisbury Avenue. I understand that phase 1 of the restriping plan is going to stretch from Salisbury city limits to Long Ferry Road in Spencer, and I have concerns that this move from a 4-lane road to a 3-lane road will create considerable traffic congestion for the community. Realize where we are, there is no way out other than that, unless you want to go a dirt road. So, throughout my time as a resident, I've experienced many traffic congestions due to rerouting of traffic on I-85 because of construction or wrecks. It is my fear that these congestions will only worsen for residents and businesses on the north end of Spencer in the event that reduction of lanes occurs combined with the increasing growth in population and industry. It is also my opinion that the cons outweigh the pros to decrease lanes on Salisbury Avenue. Here are my reasons, and this is a few. Emergency vehicles. The decrease in lanes would create considerable problems for personnel to navigate traffic in the event of an emergency. As a wife of a former firefighter in Spencer, I can tell you that these men and women struggle to navigate traffic as is when responding to calls. Decreasing the lanes of traffic could also cause delays in response time to emergency situations. Our new dialysis center, every day almost. Established and future businesses. The decrease in lanes would create havoc around Hendricks Barbecue and other businesses. Because of the traffic turning into Hendricks, traffic could be very easily build up both northbound and southbound at the restaurant and established turning lane. If this happens, how can traffic turn into any other businesses or onto Charles Street or Long Ferry Road? Food line and Bojangles. If we have only one turning lane, what kind of traffic backups will we face when residents from both the northbound and southbound lanes are attempting to use the middle turning lane for businesses on both sides of the street? To complicate this even further, we also have residents that will be attempting to turn onto Jefferson Street using the same turning lane, 3 separate movements of traffic attempting to use the same turning lane. An increase in accidents is unavoidable in this situation. Thomas the Tank, Polar Express, and Winterfest. Spencer is increasingly becoming a major tourist attraction for people out of state and all over North Carolina. By decreasing the number of lanes and creating a center turning lane, traffic is going to build up from the North Carolina Transportation Museum to T. Roy Burdette Bridge, potentially blocking off access to Food Line for Spencer residents. These events will also cause major traffic buildup in the southbound lane and from the 400 to 200 blocks of Salisbury Avenue due to traffic. Think about all the traffic and the residents that don't even have a place other than to pull into their yard for parking. What that's going to mean to them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morgan. All right, next is Philip McCorkle.
Shopping center down there. I'm an EVD driver, and in order to drive, you got to follow the rules of the road. Can't drive left center, can't drive in turning lanes, and like Mr. Morgan was talking about, Food Line traffic. Okay, they go down to the nursing home north end of the Spencer. You got Food Line traffic, you got Bojangles traffic, you got Hendricks traffic, and during the day when people get off work, you can't hardly get out Food Line with 2 lanes instead of 1 lane. And if traffic gets backed up, where's the emergency vehicle thing? Like somebody talking about the business on the south end, down here between 5th and 6th Street. If you're gonna do it downtown only. Don't do it because you come up 4th Street, something happens on 85, you got traffic backed up. What is it, 100 yards in front of the fire department? You get traffic backed up. How's the engine gonna get out? How's first responders gonna get out of the station? That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. McCorkle. All right, next is Darryl Brown.
My name's Darryl Brown and live at 414 South Iredale, about 3 blocks right there. I just want to echo what all these folks have already said. And I personally cannot see any benefit. I hate driving in Salisbury. If I pull into a parking space up there, I am at the mercy of the traffic light and that single line of traffic because you've got no room to back out. I haven't seen any advantage to traffic flow in reference to Salisbury. I don't see how it would help our town at all. A wise person once told me long ago, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've been living with this situation as long as I can remember. I'm 63 and I've driven on these roads since I was 16. Hadn't had a problem with it yet. So don't see why we need to change things up if it's working like it's supposed to. A couple of other things I just want to throw out. This is for another day, but what about a bank? What about a drugstore in Spencer? We've made it difficult to recycle because of the times you can get into the recycling center down here. I'm retired now. I could do it 7 days a week. Doesn't matter. If they would just open the gate and we could get in. And you have times that times that would work better than what they are. And I'm saving somebody's time. That's about all I've got. But again, if it ain't broke, let's not fix it. John tells me that it doesn't cost us money. Well, it's costing us something. It's got to. If we're paying taxes and the state's paying for it, to me, that's spending some of my money. I don't see the advantage of doing out here what they're costing. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. All right, next is Lisa Monroe.
I'm not much of a speaker, but I did send in an email today. I live at 1019 North Salisbury Avenue. So when I sent my email, I didn't make good notes, but I was just jotting down. So the thing that I'm concerned about is I drive from Salisbury Avenue to Jake Alexander every day for work. I hate going through Salisbury. If you get behind a car going 20 miles an hour, you're stuck through Salisbury. The vehicles sometimes are too large for the parking lanes, and they're out into the lane of travel. So you're having to dodge those. Emergency vehicles are a big concern for me. I live on 29. Over the years, traffic being diverted onto 29, I think it's a safety issue for police, EMS, fire trucks, because at times I have seen it backed up so far that I have to go out from my backyard onto Elizabeth Avenue to even come to the dirt road to get through Spencer. I think it puts people at a risk to bring that down to one lane north and southbound. I see confusion every day in Salisbury. People don't understand using the turn-in lane. So, for example, Cocoa Java, every morning I witness people sitting in the lane of traffic that I'm trying to move in, that they don't realize they can pull over into the turning lane to turn into a business. So to the turning lane really is no benefit through Salisbury. The only advantage I see is turning on the square. That is the only advantage I see. I think it's going to deter people from coming into Spencer. I now take 85 to avoid going through Salisbury. I don't want to do that. I enjoy a morning ride through town. But if this happens, for sure, I think a lot of people will take the interstate just for the sake of making better time going to work. Bicycle riders. I'm not against anybody having a bike lane. I think we need a park here in Spencer. I think we need Greenway. I don't have a problem with a bike lane. My issue is large groups of bike riders come by my house all the time. I think it's great, but they get in the lane of traffic and they will not move aside for a vehicle. It's like they have the right of way and you don't. So once this happens and you see these large groups coming through town, what are we going to do? We're going to be stuck behind bike riders who aren't willing to move over. And I'm not saying they all don't, but the majority of the ones that come by going towards the Yadkin River are in the lane of traffic. Trains. I catch the train a lot of times on the afternoon coming from work. That train will back up traffic all the way past Cocoa Java and Salisbury. And there's nothing you can do because that train is taking its time. Once all this is developed on Longs Ferry Road, it's very dangerous. I'm sorry, the two worst intersections, Bojangles, Longs Ferry Road. This is going to be an issue with trains backing up.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. All right, next is Jim Goggle.
Good evening, Board, Alderman, Mayor. It's good to be on this side of the dice, I will say that. I will speak in favor of the bike lanes and the traffic calming effects that it will create by narrowing our roads. People have mentioned the city of Salisbury several times. I know coming from Salisbury on the 2-lane road, on the 3-lane roads they have up there, once people hit Spencer city limits, zoom, they're gone. Unsafe, they're speeding. My wife and I both walk on Salisbury Avenue a lot, and when you can walk on the sidewalk and feel a car go by and the wind hit you, it's too much speed. Traffic calming. This is what it's all about. It's about safety. I heard another speaker talk about large groups of bikes going down towards the Yadkin River. We had bike lanes, it would be safety for them. So, and again, I'll say, another thing I'll say, this board does not go on anything willy-nilly. They do studies. They check with the DOT. They've done their homework on this. There's a lot of information out about this. And also, Mr. Blunt, Mr. Harris, I appreciate the work they've done and the language they put into these topics, and hopefully that they will be explained fully so the public can understand exactly what's going on, and maybe they'll have a little better outlook of what we're trying to do. So anyway, it's your call. You pull the levers here in town, but I would hope you consider going forward, because this is a thing that these are issues that make towns go forward. Mr. Mosier, he mentioned the millennial generation. These are some of the things they look at when they move into cities. They like greenways, they like parks, they like bike lanes, they open space. So if we're gonna progress this town, this is one of the things we should do. And hopefully it will not negatively impact the people that have spoken. I understand the majority of these people, I think, that spoke live on Salisbury Avenue. I don't live on Salisbury Avenue, but I think once they understand exactly what we're trying to do and what the good it will do for the town, I think they could understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goggle. All right, so that concludes those who have signed up to speak in person tonight, and so we'll move forward then with several of the letters that have been provided. And Ms. Monroe, I'm going to take yours out. The board, everybody has copies of these that have been sent in, so they've seen them. Okay. All right, the first is from Anthony Nero. To whom this may concern, I am Anthony Nero. Not only am I a resident here in Spencer since 2009, but as of 2019, a business owner. I in fact believe that restriping the roads here in Spencer to make the change to single lanes with a bike lane is a very good idea. Working at Pinocchio's for over 10 years, I have watched many cars speed through town without regard. I believe that slowing the traffic can only help our town along with the museum, since there are many people that walk up and down our streets and across the street to the museum. But I am most for the bike lane as a person that runs and rides bikes. When running on the sidewalks on Salisbury Avenue, most cars blow by stop signs and stop at the street, and usually I have to watch them, or I would have been hit countless times. If I run on the road, which runners are allowed to do, I am close to the curb to make sure that I am not in the way of drivers. I still get cursed at or they swerve at me. As a cyclist, I have to ride on the road and I get swerved at or cursed at. I make sure to stay on the side of the road. If other cities and towns can have bike lanes, why can't Spencer? We are smaller and cleaner than most of the other towns in this state. Sincerely, Anthony. Okay, the next one is from Lori Coleman and Danny Wilson. It says, Dear Alderman and Alderwomen, I am sending this message regarding the repaving of Salisbury Avenue. I am definitely against it. Not that I am against progress, but this doesn't serve our community as it should. Our industry is growing rapidly down the Long Ferry corridor, and to have it bottleneck into Salisbury Avenue would be a logistical nightmare. I drive a school bus from North Rowan, and I see the traffic every day down Long Ferry and Salisbury Avenue from Jefferson Street to the Yadkin River. A lot of mornings when I travel past the PCA plant, there are trucks taking up the outside lane on either side of Salisbury Avenue. I can go around around the trucks as of now on the inside lane. What will I do when it is one lane? I can't pass the trucks in the turning lane. If something happens, then I'm liable, and more than likely I will be fired. Do you realize there are many buses that travel up and down Salisbury Avenue through Spencer? You may say, well, they travel up Salisbury Avenue in Salisbury. There is not as much road in which stops are made. Really, the only area is near Henderson High School. Buses do not make stops in downtown Salisbury just because there is not as much residential area. The only area for pickup is from the Spencer city limits until the railroad tracks. What is that distance? A mile or maybe 3/4 of a mile. We already have cars passing our stop arms and driving crazy, and this will just make it worse. I can tell you that drivers will just pass us using the turning lane. I personally saw a car in downtown Salisbury do this just a week ago. Another thing is the bike lane. Bikes do not stay in the bike lane. I was coming into Spencer one day near Mott's Power Sport, and there were approximately 15 to 16 cyclists that were not following behind each other, but riding all out into the car lane. There was not a bike race that day. They were just out there for a ride. Are we going to take away the parking on Main Street in front of our business for a bike lane? If it is going to be like Salisbury, then the bike lane stops through town but merges with the only driving lane like in downtown Salisbury. Then what is the point to have it run to downtown Spencer and stop, and then pick up again? It makes as much sense as the bike lane over the bridge on Old Baby's Ford Road and I-85. How is this safe for anyone? We have seen in other towns such as Tybee Island where they have 4 lanes and a designated bike trail but not a bike lane. The one thing about the bike lanes in Tybee Island, the speed in these areas were reduced to protect those cyclists and residents in that area. Savannah's Main Street is 4 lanes and it is congested, and it doesn't have a bike lane, but 15 years ago that street was not as congested. This bike lane will cause more trouble than it will help. We have plenty of back streets that are right off Main Street that we can incentivize cyclists to travel instead of clogging up the only main road in town while offering a much safer and scenic route. We are working so hard at making green spaces with all our parks, and all I have read in the newsletters is where we want to link the green spaces together. So why do we want the bike lane to take the bikes away from our green spaces? We can easily connect all these green spaces through a bike trail that will eventually reconnect to the bike lane in Salisbury without ever having to disturb our town road. Have you tried getting into a business such as Coco Java with the turning lane? A nightmare. So what do you think is going to happen to business and customers going into Hendricks? What about traffic during the Polar Express and Winterfest? We will be hurting the businesses that bring what little travelers we have to town, as well as future businesses that want to invest in our downtown. This is a superficial change that will ultimately impede future businesses that will try to develop in downtown in Spencer. Have you traveled to downtown Greenville, South Carolina, or Hendersonville, North Carolina? The traffic through the downtown takes forever. One car can easily shut down traffic through town. Yes, it may look appeasing until you have been sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic to travel less than 4 blocks. I know that most of you have traveled down Highway 52 as well, where it goes down to 2 lanes. Have you ever tried to park in downtown Rockville? Have you driven on Highway 150 or 152 in the county? They are trying to widen parts of it because it is so congested. Have you seen the traffic we get when there is a detour off I-85? We don't have the privilege as other small towns do, where their main street is not a major support highway. I feel that this is taking a step backwards. What if we get a boom in population or a boom in businesses as we are seeing? Are we going to have to go back and try to widen the road that we made 1 lane? Is this a problem that our children or grandchildren are going to have to deal with in 10 or 20 years down the road? Unlike Salisbury, we only have streets basically on one side of the road. Turning lane seems fruitless. I think this is a waste of taxpayers' dollars to do something that will have more negative than positive benefits. These funds could be used in a more positive manner in the pursuit of progress. We don't have to be Salisbury. Please reconsider doing this through Spencer. Progress is not being a copycat, but doing what is right for your community. Look at the way the community and the town of China Grove came together this past week to handle a problem that arose. They did what was right for the growth of their town, and it emboldens people that want to bring real change and real progress to town. I hope that everyone takes everything into review and doesn't just stand on the hallowed box of progress. Lori Coleman and Daniel Wilson, residents of Spencer for over 50 years, and our extended family for over 115 years. We have seen the rise of the town and the fall of the town, and we hope to see the rise of the town. Okay. And the next is actually directly from Coleman Wilson. Hello, my parents and me have sent a letter speaking out against this unneeded change, but as a young citizen, I, as a young citizen, want also to have my voice heard and make sure that more people like me speak out when there is an issue that we disagree with. I will start by saying that this project serves no other purpose than to act as a feel-good project that will only lead to more issues than people my age and younger will have to fight to undo. I love my town, but it feels like every time we make strides to better it, we also take steps back with things like this. Growing up in rural North Carolina, there are a lot of small towns that suffer from road congestion because when their town was built, it only needed 2 lanes and were not used as a reroute for a major highway. But we here in Spencer are lucky in the fact that we have built a large road to accommodate rerouting and heavy traffic. Changing Main Street by making it 2 lanes with a turning and bike lane will limit and congest our the business fronts, making it harder for new and existing stores to operate, as well as making it harder for residents to travel. If we are wanting to bring progress to Spencer, then we should be making investments into town that bring new stores, residents, greenways, and events instead of feel-good fluff projects that leads to more issues than progress. If we're concerned about cyclists, bikers, then why not invest into making a trail on the back streets that links all of our greenways and parks? Other towns have done this, like Cadillac in Georgia, which has a trail that starts on one side of the island and ends at the other side. They labeled the streets that this trail is on and made sure that the speed of those streets are lower than the surrounding streets to ensure the safety of those who use it, as well as taking it through their parks and greenways to show off all its natural beauty. We could easily do this to keep our cyclist bikers safe without putting them in danger on the main road and without clogging it as well. Just because we want progress doesn't mean we rush or accept something without considering all ramifications of such actions. C.S. Lewis said it best. We all want progress, but if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. Thank you for your time and consideration. Coleman Wilson. Okay. The next is from Todd and Gayle Johnson. Good afternoon, aldermen and public officials of the town of Spencer. I have heard that the town of Spencer is proposing a turning lane like Salisbury has done along Salisbury Avenue and the Main Street. I'm not a resident of Spencer, but do travel the road quite frequently for church and local shopping. I think that the notion of doing this is totally preposterous. In the event of a wreck, traffic is frequently routed from I-85 over the Yadkin River Bridge and into Spencer. This turning lane would cause major traffic jams and possibly other accidents caused by impatient drivers trying to maneuver through these lanes. This would make more calls for emergency services to handle, including police officers who are already short-staffed and possibly a delayed dispatch in a timely manner. Also think of the headaches for the Transportation Museum as they host events like Thomas the Tank or the Polar Express. While I am sure the city of Salisbury will say that it has worked for them and not admitted it a mistake, I feel it is one of the biggest mistakes Spencer can make. I absolutely hate driving through the area where Salisbury has done this, and at times have taken a different route to avoid it. I can see myself avoiding Spencer, passing through only when necessary if this is done. Please do not pass this. Leave the 4 lanes as is. Spencer is a town with charm. Don't try to make it a big city. Sincerely, Todd. Right? And then the next one is from Karen Wilkinson. Good day, Mayor Jonathan Williams, Mayor Pro Tem Patty Sechrist, Spencer Alderman Andrew Howe, Rashid Muhammad, Steve Miller, Sam Morgan, and Spencer Alderwoman Pat Sledge. First and foremost, thank you for your dedicated service to Spencer. I would like to share my concerns regarding the move from 4 lanes to 2 lanes in support of the addition of bike lanes in Spencer. As the former City of Salisbury Director of Communication and Municipal Employee for approximately 10 years, and a graduate of the UNC Chapel Hill School of Government's Municipal and County Administration for Government Official Certification Program, I host a good understanding of municipal planning, traffic calming, green spaces, and walkable community efforts. Thank you for allowing me to share that I have concerns that the move to 2-lane traffic would create congestion, offer future avoidance of our town due to delays, and possibly incite road rage due to frustrating driving conditions. We are extremely fortunate to have the North Carolina Transportation Museum as a landmark in our town. When special events, Polar Express, Thomas the Tank Engine, take place at the museum, traffic is often backed up, and residents must use the additional lane to navigate around our town's visitors. With 4 lanes, This is not a tremendous problem. However, I see it as a potential problem with 2 lanes. In the evenings, traffic is often backed up in front of Hendrick's Barbecue as residents wait to turn into the parking area and place their order. Once again, residents use the second lane to go around this backed up traffic. Without this second lane, I see frustration and delays. Furthermore, I've witnessed frustrating drivers navigate around slow-moving elderly drivers, often blowing horns and showing unkind hand gestures. With just 2 lanes, this opportunity to go around a slow driver would be removed, and the potential for the situation to escalate is provided. As Spencer is in close proximity to I-85, traffic is often funneled through Spencer when a wreck or hazard occurs on the interstate. At times, I've struggled to leave my neighborhood due to this rerouting of traffic. As this creates a bottleneck with 4 lanes, I feel the repercussions with just 2 lanes would be detrimental. Above all, I'd hate to think that individuals begin to avoid Spencer as a throughway destination due to the difficulty associated with navigating through our small town. Currently, I avoid using the stretch of road from the Spencer city limit to Salisbury due to the 2-lane narrowing process that took place some time ago. Bottom line, it's inconvenient. I'd hate for Spencer to be labeled in a similar way. My hope is for individuals to frequent our town, not avoid it completely. Lastly, I realize that I represent a small target audience within our Spencer Township. Even so, as I consider the amenities that I review as positive to my community of choice, slow-moving traffic and a bike lane are not on my radar. I look for a town that hosts safety, police presence, excellent school system, strong code enforcement, and walkability. I can appreciate progressiveness, but I don't support progressiveness to align with the sister city when it creates a hardship for my fellow residents. I believe that 2-lane traffic would do just that. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. Once again, I appreciate your service to our town. All the best, Spencer resident, Dr. Karen Wilkinson. Okay. And so those are all the comments that we have on Highway 29. Restriping, we do have one additional comment. This is on a different topic related to cars parked in front yards. This is from Janice Sells. I'm wondering why you passed ordinance back 3 months ago, parked cars in front yard, and still haven't figured out how to implement it. This has been an issue for a long time, and nothing is getting done. Code enforcement has not done anything about this problem either. That is the end of that public comment. And so those are the public comments we have received. For everyone that came tonight to speak, we really do appreciate it and appreciate your input. Whether you are for or against the issues at hand, we really do appreciate your thoughtfulness. All right. Next item is our consent agenda. And you have approval of the minutes and several other items on there. A few budget ordinance amendments and our property liens that we do each month. Is there any need to pull anything off of the consent agenda? And if not, is there a motion to approve it?
Move to approve it as stated.
Right. The motion by Mr. Howell, second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. All opposed? All right. Consent agenda is approved. And the next item, we will move forward with considering adopting the town's comprehensive land use plan and resolution 22-011. I invite Mr. Steve Blunt forward.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As you're aware, 160D, when it was passed, required that towns have a reasonably current comprehensive land use plan. Yours was drafted in 2008, and to my knowledge, has never been updated. So we started out at the beginning of the year to do a full-blown update. We found that what we really needed to do was revise several sections, which we have gone through with the planning board, working as a committee on this, to come to you with the amendments that we are suggesting at this time. This presentation was made to you on May 10th. We had a public hearing on June 9th at the pre-agenda meeting. I don't believe anybody spoke at that meeting. We're asking you to adopt Resolution 22-011, which formally adopts the revisions to the Comprehensive Land Use Plan per the memo that's attached to that, dated June 14th. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Right, I'll just remind the board that this will put us in compliance with state law requiring a reasonably up-to-date land use ordinance or land use plan. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Yes, Ms. Stubbs.
sorry. I noticed some changes that need to be made where items stricken. There'll need to be some updates with new alphabetical or headers. But I wondered about section 4 on page 9. The title is Improve the Performance and Perception of Schools in Spencer, and we agreed that we can't really do anything about the schools in Spencer. That's up to the school system. But I wondered, the changes there, research opportunities to plan for bicycle and pedestrian access to schools, and speed limit management on Charles Street. Should we change the title of that section?
That's a good suggestion. We'll take care of that.
And again, I saw some other places where things that need just to be updated with the new categories. I think that's all I think.
If you would forward those edits to me, what I'd like to do and what the School for Government is suggesting that municipalities do is get something adopted before July 1st. So if you can, if there's no major changes, go ahead and adopt what we presented, and then we will, if you'll send me those edits, I'll make the edits and bring it back to you at a future meeting.
I see no reason why they shouldn't be adopted if it is with those notifications that some minor updates.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to adopt Resolution 22-011 with the additional updates that Ms. Sledge has indicated?
I move to adopt the updated resolution.
All right. Motion by Ms. Sledge, second by Mayor Pro Tem. In favor? All right. All opposed? And that is approved. All right.
Many thanks to all of you for the work you put in.
Absolutely. Yeah, Steve, thank you very much. I think you saved us from having to have a consultant come in and do that for us with your wealth of experience.
And another $40,000.
Right. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Next on our agenda is obviously what everybody's here for tonight is to consider the design concept and Resolution 22-010 for restriping of Salisbury Avenue. Mr. Blunt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I'm about batting 100% right now. I probably should sit down. But let's take a shot at this. As you're aware, the opportunity to restripe the highway, Salisbury Avenue from 17th Street to Longs Ferry Road came about because NCDOT was going to refinish the road. At that time, they asked us if we had any input concerning the restriping. Staff started working on this before I came to work for you in January, so I picked it up from there. Town had hired a consultant, Kimley Horn, to help staff prepare the revisions to the cross sections of the road. The maps on the walls on both sides were created by them that shows the proposed profile that would be suggested to you tonight. We made preliminary presentation to the board on May 10th at the board meeting. There was a public hearing held at the pre-agenda meeting on June 9th, and there obviously have been some comments offered tonight. In both situations, at the public hearing and public comment tonight, obviously there's a split opinion on whether this should or shouldn't go forward. At some point I gave you a document that was called Frequently Asked Questions, and I told you the last time we met on this that I had to guess what the questions were because nobody called me up and said, hey, I've got a problem with this, probably until yesterday. And I started hearing from some folks that are probably in the audience tonight. Appreciate them coming out to speak their mind on this issue. So what I've done is pared down the original presentation, and I call this presentation summary. So hopefully this is the last time I have to make this to you, last time you have to listen to it. But during this presentation, I'll try to address some of the issues that have been raised to you to date. And I wrote down a few more answers that we'll add to it. So the things I want to talk to you about is, see if I can read it. Yeah. The restriping plan, including what's called the road diet and the bike lanes, was actually a top priority of the town's recent bicycle and pedestrian master plan. The town went through a full-blown process and that was the result. I'll get some more detail on that in a minute. I've talked to you before about adding certain amenities to help Spencer with economic and community development efforts. As has been mentioned today, the road diet and bike lanes will serve as traffic calming devices, lowering Salisbury Avenue's implied speed. And we've talked about that at length at previous meetings. The proposed restriping in addition to bike lanes is fully supported by NCDOT's Smart Streets Design Program. This is what they use to design roads all over the state at this point. And then again, I want to answer a few specific questions. We'll move on. There's your comprehensive bicycle plan. That's the cover for it. I think it was done in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of people were involved in it, a lot of professional assistance from NCDOT. These were the 4 basic impacts that the plan tried to work toward: connecting communities, the health benefits of activities like bicycling and walking, the economic impacts, and the environmental benefits. This is a map right out of that plan, and it shows bike lanes from 17th Street all the way out to the Wilcox Bridge. This was a top priority of that plan, as is shown in this chart that was in the plan. That arrow at the bottom, it was the #1 priority goal of that planning operation to have bike lanes on both sides of the road. So the second item I want to talk about is the right amenities will help Spencer grow the right way. And you've seen this slide many times before. It's which comes first, chicken or the egg type thing. Everybody wants certain nice things in your town. They want nicer restaurants. They want places to shop. They want better jobs. They want nice neighborhoods. And you don't just get those by wishing. You have to do certain things in a sequence to get those things to come. The last one on the left of that circle is to provide the right amenities in your town to attract people that have disposable income and to actually attract people that want to live here with their families. Your town needs to grow if you're ever going to have a chance to have those nice things that everybody wants, that everybody in this room wants. Even if they spoke against bike lanes, I guarantee you they want those things. Traffic calming. We've heard that name many times. I had a lot of slides in the previous presentation. This is one of them. On the lower left-hand side are bike lanes. Bike lanes are a traffic calming device. That, coupled with reducing travel lanes and putting a turn lane in, slows the traffic. The turn lane stops what is called the approaching speed of cars. And of course, the best traffic calming device in the world, and no offense to little old ladies with gray hair, if you get behind someone doing 20 miles an hour on a single lane of traffic in downtown Spencer, that's how fast you're going to go. And that's how fast you're going to go because that's what the speed limit is. And when you get into downtown Salisbury and you have to slow down to 20 miles an hour because there's only one lane of traffic, that's because that's what the speed limit is. That's how fast you're supposed to be going. You may be used to going 35, but you're supposed to be doing 20 miles an hour. The Complete Streets project from the state, they came out with a great planning effort. And really what they're trying to do is make sure the state roads are used for everybody. Right now, or in the past, NCDOT thought only of cars and trucks driving up and down the road. Now they are trying to make sure that bicyclists and walkers have a use of this property also. Now, there was a comment made earlier concerning the groups of bicyclists riding in traffic lanes. I'm a part-time bicyclist myself. Bicyclists actually have a right to drive in the traffic lane. And bicyclists are taught to ride a little ways away from the curb so that cars have to slow down instead of zooming by and possibly hitting them by mistake. So without the bike lanes, bicyclists are forced to use a traffic lane and forced to stop cars from moving as fast as they. If you let me finish, I'll be glad to answer any questions. don't want to lose my train of thought, and that's easily done. We had some specific questions. The questions were raised in previous comments, and some as late as the public hearing at your pre-agenda meeting. And we've tried to take each one of them seriously and actually look at them and find a solution. So as far as the traffic at the Transportation Museum, this is the concern, is that people trying to turn right going northbound into the Transportation Museum are going to block traffic. Obviously, coming south, there'll be a dedicated turn lane under this proposal. So it'll actually be safer to turn in coming south under the new proposal. The solution that we came up with and shared this with the Transportation Museum was on days of big events, as needed, you put some cones out there and use the bike lane for a right-hand turn lane. You put up a few signs saying bike lane closed and right lane for event. The only question the Transportation Museum had about this was who's going to get the cones and who's going to do the traffic management. And we'll work out all those details with them to make these events work always. Hendrick's Barbecue, I eat there a couple times a week, and I agree. At times the traffic backs out into the northbound lane. We looked at this map. We tried to see what the problem might be. And you see my blue arrows going counterclockwise. That's what we're suggesting they do to fix the problem. Right now, traffic comes in on that second entrance, and they take the orders with that little box. It's a little hard to see on that drawing. What they have there is what's called a stacking length of about 2 cars. So 2 cars pull in, one's taking an order. That's all the cars that can come in. Everybody else has to back up into the street. If you did it the other way around, by our estimate, you could have 9 or 10 cars that could pull in there, going the other way around. They would pull into the stack. They would take the order at the window where now they take the money. And they would also take your money at the same time they took the order. And then, like their other 2 restaurants, somebody would then bring your order out to you. So again, I'm not in the restaurant business, but this has been presented, or at least our code enforcement officer has talked to the owners of Hendrick's about this and a few other parking lot issues, and they are open to working to solve the problem. The problem is not created by bike lanes. It's not created by the number of traffic lanes. It's created by the wonderful barbecue at Hendrick's Barbecue and people wanting to line up to get in there to get it. The lining up part of it can be solved. The alternate route for I-85 has been discussed. We looked into that before we got started with this project. As was mentioned by one person earlier, Longstreet is actually now the primary bypass route. And what I was told by NCDOT, and also looked at their traffic count studies, is that Longstreet has more traffic than Salisbury Avenue at certain points along the road. Longstreet's 2 lanes already, no turning lane. And yet that's DOT's primary bypass route if something happens on I-85. We are still a secondary route. If something really bad happens and they got a lot of traffic, they will send some traffic through Spencer, but not nearly as much as it used to be. The problem that really used to send them through Spencer is when the bridge got closed. And now the bridge is much wider with many more travel lanes. The closing of the bridge is a rare occasion. Will it hurt local businessmen? We've heard this claim that this will hurt businesses. Anthony Nero, who sent in an email that you heard earlier, is the owner of Pinocchio's. His business is on Salisbury Avenue. He is on the planning board and actually made the motion to recommend approval of this program to you and voted in favor of it. Beth Nance. Beth and Robert own several buildings in the downtown area. They operate businesses here. She came out and spoke at the public hearing in favor of the bicycle lanes and reducing travel lanes. So those are your real local business people saying, yes, let's do this. it was said earlier that the restriping in Salisbury didn't work, so we reached out to Salisbury's engineering department, also downtown Salisbury Chamber of Commerce, and the Merchants Association. The comment I got back from Wendy Brindle, who's the town engineer, basically says, sure, they had people that were worried about it as it was going in. But once they got it in, what they started getting was compliments, and that they have heard from no businesses complaining about the problems that have been claimed it's created. Spencer residents don't support this change. We've been told that. You might assume that from tonight, that you got 6 people that spoke against it, maybe 3 more letters, so 8 or 9, 10 people against it, a couple in favor. If you're sticking your wind in the air to see which way the wind's blowing, based on that, the wind's blowing against it. But you've got more public opinion that you can hang your hat on. There was an online survey that Kyle put together when this project first got started. Got 14 responses, 9 were in favor, 5 were against. It was taken down not because he was trying to hide it from anybody or pull it while he still had people voting in favor of it. Took it down because he just wasn't getting any responses. Nobody was responding to it. The Parks and Rec master plan that you just finished, there were 143 people that responded, that walking and hiking trails and connecting areas in our community, including bike lanes, was a high priority. More specific than that is your Spencer, East Spencer bicycle and pedestrian planning document. It's online. You can look up and read all the details. It's a very thick document. They use various scientific methods of gathering information, professional surveys, not just a few people coming out to speak for or against. Overwhelmingly, as I told you earlier, the plan supports the bike lanes on Salisbury Avenue. It supports the the road diet to reduce the traffic. The planning board, who is supposed to be a representative for the people of this town, voted unanimously to support this issue. So if you trust their judgment of the people of Spencer, their judgment is this should be done. We heard tonight and we've heard before that making this change will cause traffic accidents. There's actually a Federal Highway Commission study that proved that there was a 19 to 47% reduction in overall crashes when a road diet was installed on a previously 4-lane undivided facility. And that bottom part has to do with something I mentioned earlier. I used the wrong terminology. Reduced speed differential. If you have 2 lanes of traffic traveling at each other at 30 to 40 miles an hour, the chances of an accident are pretty high. When you put that turn lane in the middle of all that, it breaks up those 2 lanes of traffic almost all the time. When the person pulls over to make a turn, he's slowed down. He's got to slow down to make a turn. He's basically coming to a stop before he makes the turn. So by their study, by the professionals' study, and this was a big, big study. It's multi-page, and I just pulled this part out to give you some numbers. It's safer to have the type of road striping that we're suggesting to you tonight, safer than what you've got out there now. There was one comment that I don't think was made tonight, but I heard it in passing, that all the new industrial development north of Long Ferry would cause a dramatic increase in traffic. And you might have trouble seeing which way all those arrows are pointing, but let me explain that that area is seeing development pressure now. We're out there almost weekly talking to people. We're working with various developers that are almost to the point of pulling the trigger and buying the land and starting to scrape it off. Everybody on the east side of the railroad tracks is going to go to I-85, the quickest route they can go. And that yellow line that you see from Hackett down to Longsbury is the new access road we're trying to get built to access all these properties. And we're, again, very, very close to making that a reality. All those arrows on the right-hand side of the railroads are going to flow down to Long Ferry and turn towards that gold star down there. It's the interchange for I-85 and Long Ferry. That's why these people want to move their industries out there. It's not so they can drive into downtown Spencer with their tractor trailers. It's so they can get to the interstate. So Salisbury Avenue will never see that traffic. The other areas, yes, there is some industrial land on the west side of the railroad track, fairly large parcel. We've talked to the developers on that. And depending on where their access is, there will probably be some traffic moving south, some traffic moving north. I agree with what the lady said about the intersection of Long Ferry and Salisbury Avenue. If it doesn't need a signal right now, it's going to need one in the near future. And that signal will help control those traffic movements through that interstate. The gold star up the top is the North Carolina finishing property. And again, that's a very important place for this town and for this area. And if it builds out in the way we hope it will over time, there will be a lot of vehicles pulling out of there. But as you see that one area pointing north, a lot of your traffic, that's going to be the easiest route for them to get to the interstate, is to turn north and go to the interstate. Some will come south, but most of it will go north. We want some of it to come south. We want that corridor to be built up as a commercial corridor. One of the ways to make that star at the top happen is to add the amenities that this community needs to attract people that will go out there and use that, and they will ride their bikes out there. I think we're coming to the end. We're ending. So, with that, let me see what I wrote down. I told you about bikes and traffic lanes by state law. They have a right to ride in that lane all they want to. They're a vehicle as far as traffic laws go. Using greenways to make connections, I'm all for it. $1 million a mile. Cough up the money, we'll forget about this project, go start building greenways. This is basically for free. Greenways will cost this town $1 million a month. And I don't see us doing that anytime soon. And I mentioned Long Street being the first opportunity. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So at this point, what I want to do before we get into board questions, I'm going to ask that both Chief File and Chief Lanning come forward because one of the concerns that we've had relates to public safety. So I do want to get kind of their perspectives on how this impacts public safety and specifically each of their operations for fire and for police.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'll reference my notes. I'm sure you do not want my personal opinion on this, and I'm glad you do not. That way I'm not putting myself in the middle of what could be a controversial topic. What I thought was best in this situation as far as my response from the police department was to poll our officers because they probably log more mileage on Salisbury Avenue daily than any other vehicle that's coming through town of Spencer. With that being said, they brought up a lot of points that have already been brought up, but I want to just give them to the board so that you can hear what was brought up by the officers. Obviously, there was some concerns that were brought up about when there's traffic jams on 85 and the increased traffic flow coming down Salisbury Avenue. The concern was the backups. The immediate response to that was that traffic should be moving slower instead of us having to place a vehicle out here to try to slow the traffic down, where we have somebody that's trying to use Salisbury Avenue to make up time that they have lost on the interstate. So there was a positive and a negative that was brought up on that. The Hendricks backup was mentioned. I believe it sounds like there may be some sort of resolution to that as far as rerouting inside the parking lot. There was a little bit of concern about potential of wrecks from the public not knowing the traffic flow or the traffic pattern with new turn lanes. Obviously, that's just going to be something that would be time for the citizens and those that are passing through the community to be able to see what the new traffic pattern is. As far as some pros that were mentioned,
school buses. We have been asked numerous times, and at every beginning of the school year, we have to place patrol cars following school buses for vehicles that are illegally passing school buses when they're doing their stops on Salisbury Avenue. So that was the benefit that was thought of initially, is that the vehicles are not going to have the same ability to pass them because we're not going to have 4 lanes anymore. So it would have to be a decision that is made by that individual to jump out into a turn lane to intentionally pass the school bus instead of just failing to stop for the arm as it comes out as they're traveling the same direction. There was a talk about potential for safer pedestrian crossings going over to the museum when there are events going on, which also led to easier traffic direction for the officers. Anytime that we've been forced to direct traffic on Salisbury Avenue, it is very hard to manage, especially at Jefferson Street intersection, to manage 4 lanes of traffic plus Jefferson Street with 1 officer. When you have a turn lane situation, the officers conveyed that they thought that would be easier to manage as far as directing traffic. Those were the things that were pointed out. Obviously, the speed was mentioned. There's no doubt that there are more speeding drivers than there are drivers that are going under the speed limit. We received numerous complaints about speeding. If we wanted to write 50 tickets today on Salisbury Avenue, we could. Obviously, the state of North Carolina is the absolute speed law, so 21 and a 20 is speeding, but we do not consider that appropriate, nor does the district attorney, so we don't issue tickets for such things. It has to be an egregious speeding violation. We don't require any issue 5 over speeding tickets all day long. Although anybody that drives to the city would know that we could. Those were things that were brought up by the officers. I wanted to share that with the board instead of getting my personal opinion on it. I will say that I ran just because I'm a numbers person, I ran our traffic accidents on Salisbury Avenue since January 1st of this year. So we only have those 5 months of data. But I'll tell you, on Salisbury Avenue, coming from the city of Salisbury, we have had accident at 17th Street, accident at 11th Street, accident at 8th Street, accident at 4th Street, 2 accidents at 3rd, 1 accident at Jefferson, 1 at Newton, and 1 at Long Ferry. So those are the accidents that we have had during the past 5 months, actually on Salisbury Avenue, where a street joins up with Salisbury Avenue. I hope that information was helpful for you. I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have for us.
Were those accidents, exiting issues or entering 29? Or I don't know if that makes sense, but so were they vehicles exiting 29 to exiting Salisbury Avenue to a street, 8th Street, 11th Street?
Without having the reports in front of me, I'm not sure. I think I looked at some of the diagrams briefly before I came in. I think it was a little bit of a combination.
Okay.
There were a few. I believe there was 1 or 2 rear end collisions. The other ones were vehicles actually at the intersection where it was entering into either somebody pulling off or somebody pulling into, and some sort of angle impact.
Thank you. Chief Lanning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mayor and board, just as Chief File, I'm going to strive to keep personal opinions out of it. And kind of the same thing. I have asked my staff. I've spoke with the City of Salisbury Fire Department, spoke with China Grove. They kind of have something similar. How does this work? And I will say and preface by saying, I'm not going to say I'm leaning either way, even as the fire chief. There's so much unknown for me with this process to say, hey, I think we should or we shouldn't. I do have a lot of concerns, and most of them revolve around traffic congestion. 85, yes, they widen the bridge. I sit in the town every day. If there's a wreck on 85, you know there's a wreck on 85. Traffic does increase. The biggest pro to this is traffic calming. It's needed. Our PD is amazing. They can sit in front of the fire station all day. As soon as they leave, the car goes 60 by the fire station. Right? And they're doing the best they can. So out of all this, that is the pro that me and my team have developed, that yes, speeds will be reduced. Crashes, hopefully, if it doesn't lessen them, they won't be as severe. A lot of these crashes Chief I was speaking of, we're kind of there, and most of them are turning in or turning out. People just don't pay attention. My other concern, and with this traffic congestion, is the education period. right? For people to get the drift of how this traffic pattern is going to work. Just last week, I rode probably 2.5 miles behind a car, my lights and siren on, right? People don't obey the traffic laws now, and it's been this way forever. I know people talk about changing it and this and that, but we have problems with the way it is now. We'll probably have problems if we change it. That's reality. It's life. It's pros and cons to everything. Hendricks, PCA, again, we travel down through there. Millersbury travels past PCA, down 29 towards the finishing company. That's their fire district. You know, the tractor and trailers coming out on the Salisbury Avenue is an issue. And so I guess in my mind, where I'm coming from is, you know, if this passes, our preference in driving our apparatus commercial traffic is traveling turning lanes. That is going to be the safest thing for us. But if we have a mile, and not to exaggerate, but their tractors and trailers will be that way, where do they go when we're traveling that turn lane? Does that make sense? And so that's my concern is, how's this going to look? Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be negative? I don't know. I don't know which way to tell you is my recommendation. But those are my concerns with that. Salisbury, the consensus from them, from their administrations, is people that are on the truck 50-50. Some love it, some hate it. They have preemption devices on every stoplight in the city, which is a very costly addition, but it aids them, and it has aided them in that transition. They upgraded that. So, you know, it's GPS, it's wireless. Stoplight knows that they're putting a turn signal on before they get there. So that aids them in a lot of, you know, their navigation of traffic. But again, back to the businesses, that's not my opinion, and us problem. That's a business problem. They could change things to better facilitate traffic movement, whether we change it or don't. Y'all have any questions for me?
Question? I do have one for both of them. It's more relative to the backups on I-85. How often are we typically seeing significant backups with their traffic volumes within Spencer due to accidents on I-85 in a given year?
I mean, that are severe enough that I think they shut down 85 completely. I mean, anytime there's any wreck to any degree, people are going to get off on the exit because they don't have to wait, whether it's an extra 10 minutes or not. So I think we see kind of to a point the overflow pretty regular, but not where it's 100% of traffic from 85.
Other questions for Chief Fowler, Chief Lane? Okay, thank you both. We appreciate your input. All right, Mr. Blunt. We'll now open it up for board questions from Mr. Blunt, and Mr. Morgan, you've got the floor.
No, I wanted to say a couple of things. You put on your thinking caps. I've been totally against this restriping as it's been presented from the get-go. The so-called survey that was done a couple of years ago by Kyle was full of response bias. It directed your response to say or agree to a certain thing. If you remember, there aren't any bike lanes in Salisbury from Carr Street down to past Auto Works. There aren't. There's a symbol in there because, as you brought up, state law requires that you share the road with bicycles. They've had to do that since traffic came to be. There aren't any bike lanes or single lanes going in a street. I can tell you right now, people would be up in arms and they would be riding people out tarred and feathered. This whole thing has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to restrict traffic down to one lane each way. You care less about the bike lanes. I ride a bicycle too, okay? Those streets out there are wide enough to put bike lanes in there right now. If they're so concerned about bike lanes and amenities, and if I hear the word amenity one more time, I think I'm going to puke. But if you go and take a tape measure, those lanes of traffic are extremely wide. So all DOT has to do is narrow them up to meet standard lane widths, and you can still have bike lanes wide enough you could park a Volkswagen. But as Lisa Monroe brought up, bicyclists seldom use those things, primarily because people dump their garbage in it, or their yard debris, or wood or sticks or everything else, and they're hazards. So they usually stay in the left-hand side of the outer lane of traffic, or the right-hand side of the outer lane of traffic. And, you know, I just, again, more information was put out to the public for our citizens to respond regarding our previous cleanup day than any effort was made to get the word out about restriking. Again, I don't have a problem with them repaving, you know, but if you want to put bicycle lanes, put them in, but leave the 4 lanes of traffic so people can negotiate and get around school buses, get around bicyclists, and get around the old man in a hat. Or table it. Table it for another 20 years until we see the actual growth going more, okay? And then come back in 20 years. In 20 years, you won't have to worry about me sitting up here because I'll have a certain room temperature. So you won't have anybody speaking out against it. But I can tell you one thing, this community is divided. There are those that want it, and then there are those, as we've seen tonight and previously, that don't want it. And it would be nice to get an accurate count, but you never will. What I don't like is having this shoved down my throat and to the point where I have to vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Other questions or comments from the board?
I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure that folks following along out there at home know this. So, assuming this were approved, it does not change the parking on the street for our business.
That is correct. Okay. The consultant actually wanted to change it to parallel parking, and we told him no, that we wanted to maintain the diagonal parking as it was. So the parking that's there now would stay.
And then another question, obviously there are good reasons for, there are good reasons against. I've really struggled with this one, really for about 4 weeks. I've really wrestled with it. But I've heard some concerns about the money aspect of it. Spencer is not paying $1 from this for this. Is that right?
It is my understanding that the restriping part of this is completely paid by DOT. It's a state road, so the planning and surveying and things that they have to do to make it work is by DOT. There may be some signage that we have to put up that would be handled locally, but it shouldn't be a major cost.
But in terms of, and even from a DOT perspective, we're all state taxpayers. Painting this, they buy paint in the hundreds of millions of gallons annually. The difference is negligible, I'm sure.
Well, they would have to paint it.
They got to paint it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They got to do it anyway. So if there is a difference, it's negligible.
Right.
Okay.
I agree.
I'll say this too. I do have a procedural question about our vote in just a bit that we'll get to. I've been on the board since December. I think every vote has been 7-0 or 6-1. And the 6-1 was the very first one for the special use or the conditional use. Obviously there are people very much for this and very much against this. I have no idea how my colleagues are going to vote. I think I know how I'm going to vote. I'm not really sure yet, to be honest with you. But there's a lot of progress we're doing. We're moving forward. This, regardless of from a sum zero perspective, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, right? That's how this is going to work. I hope, however this turns out, we all can put this behind us and do the business that we need to get done. There's just too much going on. It's good to let this, as you said, obviously we are a little bit done. We can't let this get in the way of where we're headed. I just want to say that because there's just too much good going on to let this get in the way.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Are there other comments? I've got a few, but I'm going to let the board.
I want to say a big thank you to Steve and the planning board because I know they put a lot of study into this. You gave us a very thorough presentation that we've seen several times, and every time I've seen something else that I hadn't thought about beforehand. So thank you very much to all of you, because I know there's just a big job.
I have struggled with this as well, because I think it's something that we have to keep the progress going that we have started here in Spencer. Personally, I'm frightened every time I pull in one of these parking lots or parking spaces across Main Street and then have to back out into 2 lanes of traffic coming at me, because I don't know if it's my car or if it's what my problem is, but I can't see those oncoming cars. So I think if we had 1 lane, that would make it a whole lot safer to be backing out into traffic. And I've had citizens tell me too that they would ride their bicycles here in town if there was a place for them to ride safely. But because of the way traffic is, I live on Charles Street. The traffic there is supposed to be 25 miles per hour. You know, I can't hardly even keep my speed to 25 going down that hill. But the cars through their speed all the time. So, you know, I don't ride a bicycle. I can't. I never learned. I tried to kill myself when I was a teenager. And my last husband tried to teach me to ride a motorcycle, which was a disaster too. So you'll see me walking, but not riding a bicycle. But I do think that, we've got a lot of good things going. And we're making a lot of progress toward things that will bring more people to our area. So I think this is an important consideration. And I've been keeping tally of, pros and cons. Thank you.
So I just want to add a few things, and I'm like everybody else in that, want to be completely objective in this and consider all perspectives of our citizens. And we've heard a lot of folks for, we've heard a lot of folks against. What I have found interesting through that process is the concerns that people have, they're valid. But I think a lot of the validity to them is concern about the unknown. Because we heard things tonight that are speculation over what will happen, worst case scenarios. And yeah, it's somewhat of a risk that we take if we move forward with it. But in order to make progress, we have to take risks sometimes. And people say, well, why are we doing this? Well, I think you've heard some of the reasons that we're considering it. Traffic calming is a huge. For me, that's probably the most important. And the reason why is because you look around at the damage that has been caused by folks that have sped through here. And some folks may say, well, our police should do a better job enforcing it. Well, guess what? Some of those have been because our police have had to chase those folks because they've engaged in criminal activity. We've had businesses that have been ruined by drivers that have run into them. We've had multiple planters that are town property that have been hit. We've had a house that's been damaged. And is a road diet going to fix it? It's not going to fix it. It's not going to stop it, but it will certainly help it. And Mr. Blunt shared with you that studies have proven that. People say it will be an inconvenience. The inconvenience is that it's going to make folks actually probably drive the speed limit. And I get that. I completely get that. But the speed limits are there for a reason. They're there to keep people safe, to keep cars from running into buildings and running into planters and, heaven forbid, running into people or bicyclists. People say that we don't have a lot of bicyclists. Well, Ms. Sledge pointed out that we don't. And there's a reason for that. Because we are not a biker-friendly community. And frankly, we're not a runner-friendly community. I used to be a runner. Obviously, I don't do that much anymore, but I need to get back to it. But these are the type of things, and Sam, I know you don't like the word amenities, but these are the type of things that people are looking for. Not everybody, and I think there are a lot of folks here tonight that aren't looking for that. But just because you're not looking for it, don't think that other people aren't. So, Transportation Museum. Y'all have met and talked. I met with Kelly Alexander and had a conversation with her. Conversation boiled down to this: how many events during the year truly represent a traffic problem for the Transportation Museum in town? Really 2 events, maybe 3 polar, but really it's the fire truck show and Thomas, which amounts to be 4 to 6 days max a year. One of the things we talked about were your solutions. The other thing we talked about is, as a town, we could provide traffic control. That's the way we partner with our folks across the street. Some of the other things that you've heard relate to businesses that are having traffic back up into the street. That's great that we have that problem because folks are frequenting those businesses, but it's a business problem that we need to work with them to help solve. It's not a Highway 29 problem. It's not being generated by Highway 29. It's being generated by the amount of folks going to that business. At our retreat, I talked to you about a few things, and one of those was, this is our time, this is our moment, right? And we've got to run. We can't sit around and dilly-dally on it. We can't sit around for years and toss things around, and frankly, this has been tossed around for a long time. Folks may say that we're shoving it down their throat, but we started detailed conversations on this a year ago. Now, just within the past several months have we actually gotten to see detailed plans, but this idea has been discussed for over a year. Can we do a better job communicating to our citizens? Absolutely. But we included online information, social media information, newsletter information. What's come to my attention is we've got some citizens that aren't getting some of our newsletters and mailings. That's an issue we need to fix. And I know y'all are already working towards that. We've met with the postmaster to address those issues. And we welcome input from our citizens about ways that we can communicate better with you, right? What way do you receive your information? What way do you want to receive your information from the town? We need to let our town staff and our board know that. But here's the thing, and I've said this, now is our moment. We've got, what's going to happen out here is going to be set for the next 20 years. Okay? If it's a mistake, you live with it for 20 years. But I think the reward far outweighs the risk in the type of what that's going to provide to our citizens now, our businesses, but then also future folks that see it as a town. Somebody brought up, maybe in a letter, several towns about traffic being a nightmare in Hendersonville and Greenville, South Carolina. Personally, those are 2 of my favorite places in the Southeast. Both of those places have won awards for being the top communities within their respective states. Hendersonville has been in North Carolina. Greenville has been in South Carolina. This doesn't need to be a drag strip. People treat it as such right now. The engineer in me sees all the benefit, and maybe that's the perspective I come from. I see all the benefits that it does provide for recreation, for safety. And I know that diverging diamond interchanges and roundabouts, they all get incredibly bad names because they're new, right? They're different. They're not what people are used to. But they are more efficient and they're safer. I mean, the engineering community has proven. It's scientifically proven. But the fear of the unknown, the fear of change and something new, I think is what creates a lot of hesitation with everybody. You heard it from Chief Lane, right? He's got concerns because of the unknowns. But here's the thing. You've seen this quote from me before. We cannot become what we need to be by remaining what we are. So with that, that's all I have to say about it. The decision is up to you all and what you want to do. And again, I really appreciate all the input that we have gotten from everybody for and against it. these are the type of thing. This is the type of input we need from you all the time. We really do, right? Show up, be present, be active. Be involved. Not just when something's not going the way that you want it to. Be involved in your town and the decisions that are being made, because we want to hear from you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add just a few points before you move to a vote. It's not an important issue, but Mr. Morgan pointed out that people would get hung if they tried to put bike lanes on Ennis Street, and I totally agree with you. And it just popped in my head that NCDOT's traffic counts show Ennis Street at something over 21,000 traffic movements a day, whereas Main Street, Salisbury Avenue is in the 3,000 range. So totally different amounts of traffic. I think I mentioned earlier that Long Street has as much traffic as Salisbury Avenue does, based on DOT traffic count. It's already a two-lane road. So those two things. Closing, I will say, I'm gonna love you guys tomorrow, no matter how you vote. Staff's job is to execute your policy, and your policy is to make this a walkable, pedestrian-friendly community. This is one way to do it. If you had decided you wanted to be a car-friendly community and that was your policy, I'd be up here arguing against bike lanes. But you want to be a pedestrian-friendly community. You want to be a community that attracts those kind of folks to live in your community and businesses that want to support them. My job as your staff is to argue as hard as I can to get the facts in front of you that will help you support a positive decision on this. And with that, I would ask that you consider adopting Resolution 22-010, supporting the restriking project.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. All right, any further questions or discussion from the board? You had a procedure.
Yeah, can we get a voice vote? Can we do that? A voice vote, not a hand.
Yeah. Yes, we can do a vote. Yes.
I just think with all these folks, either for or against,
Absolutely.
I think being accountable to them is important.
Absolutely. Yep, we can do that for sure.
As I was listening to all this, one thing that really sticks out to me is the fact that that beautiful park is going to be out there, and what an asset I think bike lanes would prove to be to that park, because I can visualize young people, old people, middle-aged people, millennials coming into the park with their bike, sit down for a spell, and then take off. So it's a nice picture.
And one thing I did, and I think this is important, because somebody asked the question in public comment, why are we doing this, right? What's the purpose? Well, it's not about bike lanes. It's all of the things we've talked about. But the one thing that we haven't talked about that's essential to this is how this allows the town of Spencer to accomplish some of that connectivity out to the Yadkin River Trailhead. We have been so fortunate to have gotten money to essentially fund that with minimal town investment to expand Davidson County's river park across the Wilcox Bridge, onto Rowan County soil, onto Spencer soil. And what that has led to then is the fact that we also have a grant from NCDOT for $3.5 million to be able to provide trail connectivity from the Yadkin River into Spencer. Problem is, $3.5 million would have gone a lot farther than when that grant was first awarded years ago than it does today. And so this is a way that we can accomplish part of that connection for bike lanes and hopefully eventually sidewalks that go all the way out to the Yadkin River, but do that with essentially other people's money besides Spencer residents, because DOT was going to be out there repaving and restriking the parks. And so that's one of the things we forget. For me, selfishly, it goes beyond that, though, in the fact that one of the things that I've been adamant about, and our town staff's really working hard for, and I know a lot of our Spencer residents want to see it, is that finishing company site redeveloped, cleaned up, and redeveloped into something special. It may seem difficult to believe that restriping and bike lanes eventually are going to help create that, but it's the start of that, because we have the owners of the property and their developers that are coming to the table. We're talking, we're planning, And so what eventually could be something incredible at the Yadkin River with mixed-use retail, potentially lodging, restaurants, that sort of thing. It's a grandiose plan, but that is becoming closer to a reality than it's ever been. And this just provides an additional connection to that. So it's not about just right now. It's about long term and how we continue to make progress as a town. So obviously I sound like I'm for it, but really I've taken it all into consideration. And that's just, sharing those things. We've got to keep sight of the big picture and what it's all meant to do together. It's not the individual pieces. It's all supposed to work together. With that, I've talked.
Well, I'd like to say something else again. Again, those lanes out there, that pavement is wide enough as it is to put 2 bike lanes in there, one on each side, and still have 4 lanes of traffic. And just like Salisbury, and as I said before, there are no bike lanes from Carr Street down past South Main Street. There are bicycle stimulus because state law, again, requires that you share the road. So I see no advantage in getting rid of 2 lanes of traffic just to put a bike lane, when you can go ahead and put the bike lanes in there now and keep the 4 lanes.
I'd like to rebut that, Sam. I don't think the real question here is whether it's bike lanes or not. I think the real question is slowing down traffic.
Well, so if you're interested enough to slow down traffic, change the speed limit and enforce the law.
I'd like to see traffic circles, to be honest with you. I mean, that would slow people down.
Put speed bumps about every 100 yards. That'll slow traffic.
No.
Any other input?
Briefly. I think we all believe in being accountable to you all. I'm going to vote no, and I'm going to tell you why. If this were Salisbury to Food Line, I would be all for it. But I think after we get past Food Line, the nature of the road changes. The houses are further back; they're set back further off the road. The businesses are further off the road. It begins to function like a highway, which it was originally. And I drive that road every day, actually at least twice a day, driving out to Davidson County. When you get out to PCA and the truck places and out, it's a highway. It has the character of a highway. Here recently, I've seen trucks lined up in the interior lane turning into places. I'd never seen that before. So, if this were 17th Street through here, this is residential and retail commercial. It's car traffic. A couple days a year at the train museum would not be a big deal. But I think after Food Line, it changes. And I think that's where the project becomes maybe not a problem today, maybe not a problem a year from now, but I think as that does grow, there's a potential that we could go, man, I wish we didn't do this. So that's my no. And for those of you who disagree, I'm happy to talk with you about it. If you don't like it, in about 18 months, you can change it. But that's my vote.
All right. So with that, do we have a motion so we can actually call a vote, and then we'll go by voice through each person? Is there a motion to put it to vote?
I move that we take a vote on this matter.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Sledge, second by Mr. Muhammad. Okay. We will start with Mr. Morgan.
To quote Sue Myrick, not only no, but hell no.
All right. That is a no. Mr. Howell?
No.
That is a no. Mayor Pro Tem? That is one yes. Mr. Muhammad?
I vote no as well.
That is a no. Ms. Sledge?
Yes.
All right. So that is 3-4, 2 against. I'm sorry. 3 against, 2 for. And so the motion does not pass. All right. So we will move on to,
May I ask you a question, Mr. Mayor?
yes.
Since we have failed to pass this, are we just saying to the DOT, come on in and do whatever the hell you want to?
I would not recommend that. I think we need to tell DOT what we want. So I guess maybe the request is for staff to circle back around next month if you'll bring us what we need to provide to DOT for guidance. Or tonight we can just say keep it as is. My suggestion would be, let's think about if we're going to keep it 4 lanes as is. There probably are some improvements in the striping though that may need to be done.
Again, I've gone out there and measured them. The lanes now are way too wide. Again, to accommodate the trolley system that ran from Spencer to Salisbury. All DOT has to do is narrow up the inside lane slightly and put a bike lane that would be at least 4 feet, if not 5 feet wide on each side. And you could still keep your, 4 lanes of traffic. And then if they want to change it as growth comes, they can do it in another 20 years. 20 years goes by very quickly, believe me. I'm an old man, and it's gone by like that. But we're different than China Grove and Landis. We're in the fact that, we're in a situation that, we want people to come here. We want the town to grow. We want to have that word again, amenities. But still, my whole point was not to remove 2 lanes of traffic. You've still got enough width in those lanes that you could put your bicycle lanes. And when we talk about the Greenway, what I would like to do in terms from Charles Street to the Yadkin Riverhead is to seek out the possibility of obtaining property either on the right or the left to put a small paved area, which I've seen in many communities, that would allow the bicyclists to be completely removed from the roadway and access, back and forth, which would remove them completely, out of harm's way. So there are other alternatives. I did not like this particular plan of restriping and getting rid of the lanes. And I appreciate the support that I got from the other board members. Again, I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. And I've heard from enough people who are against this thing, as well as people that are for it. It's one of those flip a coin situations. And I just think that the wise choice is to allow that growth, to see where it's going to go, and then change the lanes when necessary as we get to that bridge.
So back to the question, what do we need to direct staff to do in regards to what we tell DOT as far as restrike? Because they're gonna repave and they're gonna stripe, and so do we want them to go back and stripe exactly as it is right, or are there any enhancements we want to suggest?
No, I would recommend that we explore having DOT again narrow up the lanes and put in bike lanes to from South Salisbury Avenue to North Salisbury Avenue to Charles Street.
See, Mr. Blunt has come forward.
Certainly we'll do whatever you direct us to do as staff, but we were told by NCDOT that we needed to give them input by midsummer for them to start this project. And we put all of our effort into creating these maps and these profiles and the measurements that the professionals took as far as what the width of lanes would be and what the width of the bike lanes would be. We can't recreate this. We don't have time to do this. So about all we can tell DOT is we'd like it to be something like this, something we can write in a paragraph, send to them in an email. So if what our county would like to see happen. So if you have some direction on that, we certainly could look at it. It was mentioned to do this profile to the food line and change back 4 lanes after that. That might be an option. You've got one member that's missing that might want to weigh in on this. Don't think we've got a month to make this decision. I think we've got a matter of a couple of weeks maybe to get a final decision out of y'all that we can transfer.
So can you express to DOT kind of what the board has decided and input, that they want to explore the possibility of those striping improvements that were just mentioned with maintaining the 4-lane pattern, and then see what they need from us in order to make that happen?
Can you put a median in the middle of it?
DOT is
not the DOT. Again,
we would have to pay for that. They're not.
We brought this project to you because it was basically free.
Right.
Anything we do beyond this, and I agree with the separated bike lanes, it's the best way to have it. But they cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per mile.
And they would not have to do an inordinate amount of restriping. All they would have to do is narrow up the lanes, and you've got plenty of room as it is on that outside lanes, both north and south, to put a bike lane in there.
We will follow the board's direction. Whatever you'd like us to do, we'll attempt to do.
So it's the consensus of the board to have staff reach out to DOT and explore that possibility. So not in place.
Okay. Is, if I may ask, is there any discussion or consensus around that traffic calming idea? I will. Is that still a goal in these discussions? And the other element, the center turn lane element did also allow for dedicated left turn lanes at intersections as well. We want to make sure we're capturing the right end goals when we're going back and trying to revise and provide y'all with something to consider again.
They could set up the start and stop lights like it's the drag strip at each end and just run drag races down the middle of town.
We need to provide them some direction. So beyond that, I mean, it's traffic calming.
One other option is, I
we
would say that we also can check back on timelines. I mean, we're technically still, we're in late spring right now. So in terms of when midsummer is, I don't know that it's just a few weeks away. I would like us to also check with DOT to find out how much time will they allow us to continue to think through this. And if for some reason it winds up being 2 or 3 weeks, then that's one thing. But if we could have another month, that may help us in making sure we can all land at a place that is comfortable.
One option that they could do is change the speed limit from 35 to 30. And then as you get into downtown, of course, the museum dictates that speed limit be 20. So that, you would be able to reduce the speed limit by 5 miles per hour from Jefferson, and then pick it up and go the same way into Salt. But that's everyone's concerned about the speed, but it could also enforce it more than anything.
I can speak for the fact that it is enforced because I've had a ticket out there. And he didn't cut me a bit of slack. I don't even remember who he was.
Is it inconceivable to run it to Food Line? That's not doable.
I don't know.
They were talking to Long Street. So Long Street is the intersection where Charles is. So it would stop at Charles Street and go back the rest of the way to the river. The plan was 17th to Long Ferry, which is the intersection there at Charles Street. So it would just be past Food Line.
The second phase of it from Long Ferry to the river is in 2027.
Yeah.
So probably none of us will be around to make that decision. But
speak for yourself, sir.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Our young buck there. Yeah.
I've still got a
So-
30-year mortgage, so I expect to be around.
So, I mean, as pointed out, this goes to Longs Ferry. I could go and mark on the map where the difference would be. I don't know. If what you're saying is you would vote in favor of it if it stopped at the food line intersection, we'll certainly take a look at that and see if it's possible. But your board probably needs to vote on it.
Provide that.
I mean, the design as you see it has a taper at some point, and that point currently was the project limits for this restriping. I would imagine there's some way to do that sooner, whether it's right at the intersection or not. I'm not sure. I would imagine there's a way to do it. I'm not one who draws intersections, but yeah.
So I guess my question though, if we're gonna ask staff to move forward and explore something like that, I think come back before the board is something that's different than what we've been doing tonight. We need to make sure that we don't need to be spending town money for something that we know will support it. It's gonna move forward.
If that change makes you happy, make a motion.
I move. I have a motion. I mean, I think, like I said, that from 17th Street to that general area of food line, I think it's more consistent after that. I think it's like a highway. If I would support this up to roughly food line, I think after that,
So you're still talking about Hendricks being exactly like it is.
yes.
There's a motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
There's a second by Mr. Morgan. Motion was from Mr. Howe. Any discussion on it? Confirm what the motion is.
Sure. So essentially modifying what we discussed tonight. So instead of running from 17th Street to Longford, it would run from 17th Street to roughly, I guess that it comes out, jumps over from.
Andrew Street.
And I would point out, once you approve something, we turn it over to DOT. They do the final design. I can't tell you whether they'll do the papered part on the south side of that intersection or on the north side. That would be up to them as far as traffic safety and traffic movement. So if you would make the motion general enough in that area that they can do what they think is the right thing.
If I may point out, that the recommended action was to adopt a resolution. This is on page 82 of the packet, and so what I'm seeing are some opportunities to slightly modify the resolution. There's a few spaces where it describes the project limits for Salisbury Avenue from 17th Street to Long Ferry Road, and so of course that's still going to be the resurfacing project limit, but there is a second page of the resolution has section 1, and it says the town officially requests that during NCDOT's resurfacing and restriping project for Salisbury Avenue and Spencer from 17th Street to Long Ferry Road, that NCDOT reconfigure the road cross section to provide and so on and so forth. So there could be maybe a sentence added in there to define where in that project limit you'd want the cross section to be applied.
Was there not a plan to put a traffic light at the intersection of Salisbury Avenue and Long Ferry Road? Was that not part of this discussion?
That's a future hope and pray that they do that.
But it's a necessity. I mean, and I think we as a board and our citizens hopefully will advocate the DOT for that.
There is a corridor study being done now by Rowan County that starts at the intersection of Salisbury Avenue and Long Ferry and goes all the way out to their Red Rock.
Right.
we hope that some of their suggestions would be to add the light. They are definitely talking about putting a light on either side of the I-85 intersection. So that study may support the light, and if it does, DOT would probably pick that up and do it. But this is not a part of it.
This doesn't have anything to do.
So I agree with your manager. It would be very easy, even with the general description of stopping at the Jefferson intersection, stopping the new lane pattern at or near Jefferson, and then returning to 4-lane north of it. If that wording
Talking keeping the 4 lane right.
Going north, it would be 4 lanes from that point. Going south from that point, it would be exactly what it shows on this map. I think it was.
No, yeah, no. His intent was to. They're right. They're right. I said when I withdraw my second.
Is that when 17th Street there, that's primarily parked there. We've got commercial and residential. I just don't think traffic stops a lot. But I do think after that, the road, the nature of the road changes. I drive it every day, a lot. It looks different, feels different. And I don't think it's concerned. But I can't support this as we talked about. I've already voted in my potential vote to stand by it. But in terms of adjusting that town square, we're not putting a 4-lane all the way out to, or 2-lane all the way out to really highway functions like that.
And I assume that's the language of your motion.
Yeah.
So you're back to the original plan that stopped it at Jefferson.
Instead of running Jefferson, run it roughly to give or take.
And then maintain existing strike. Yeah. But then I guess with that Sam's question, with bike lanes on that, 4 lanes, still to that modified 4 lanes north of
They can keep the 4 lanes and do what they've done in downtown Salisbury, just put a bike symbol there without any stunt. Without worrying about designating the lane.
That's a good suggestion.
Sure.
That will work up until the point that we get that separated trail system. Because I do like that. Same. It's money. That's the problem. So, okay. All right. So there is a motion on the floor, and so the motion would be simply to edit resolution 22-010. Section 1, you say the town officially requests that during NCDOT's resurfacing and restriking project for Salisbury Avenue and Spencer from 17th Street to Longferry Road, that NCDOT reconfigure the cross section from 17th Street to Jefferson Street to provide 1 lane for vehicle traffic in each direction, provide a dedicated center turn by bicycle lanes. And then into that from Jefferson to Long Ferry to maintain the existing 4-lane pattern. But that include share. We're calling that shared bike lane.
I think the symbol may be called a Shero.
Symbols in each direction. All right. So that section 1 would read: the town officially requests that during the NCDOT resurfacing and restriking project for Salisbury Avenue and Spencer 17th Street to Longferry Road, that NCDOT reconfigure the road cross section from 17th Street to Jefferson Street to provide 1 lane for vehicle traffic in each direction, provide a dedicated center turn lane, and provide bicycle lanes between the traffic lanes and the curbs of each side, not curbs. From Jefferson to Longferry, and from Jefferson to Longferry Road, maintain the existing 4-lane pattern, but include shared bike lane symbols in each direction. Right? Is that the motion?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. There's a second.
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay,
All right.
I'm
Other
confused.
further discussion?
Okay, are you saying that you want 2 lanes of traffic in and that you want a northbound lane, a southbound lane, and a center turn lane down through this section?
Yeah, from Salisbury
From
to Jefferson Street.
Okay, and then it would go back to 4 lanes from there on. But we would end up having 3 lanes through town.
Yes.
Not a 4-lane highway.
Correct. That's what. So what it does is, and to Andrew's point, that achieves traffic calming.
Right.
It also provides bike access and connectivity all the way through Salisbury. Ultimately, outstand that for us. The issue that it doesn't achieve is any type of bike access beyond Jefferson Street, but as Sam mentioned, something to consider. Keep the project for something separate. That's essentially what's on. So 3 lanes, 2 lanes, 1 lane each direction, and a center turn lane, along with bike lanes from Salisbury to Jefferson Street. Beyond that, from Jefferson to Long Ferry, and then eventually, I guess, from Long Ferry to the river, it would be 4 lanes with shared bike lanes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes. Any further discussion? So there is a motion and a second on the floor. And so with that, we will once again do a voice vote on this. Start with Ms. Sledge.
Yes.
All right, it's 1 yes. Mr. Muhammad.
No standing, no.
All right. Mr. Muhammad, that is a no. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
That's a yes. Mr. Howell?
Yes.
That is a yes. Mr. Morgan? No. That is a no. So that is 3 yeses, 2 noes, and so that is approved for a revised resolution 22-012.
We'll get that revised and sent off to DOT, and we'll keep you posted on what their response is.
Thank you, board. Thank you for discussion. Citizens, thank you for all of your input. All right. The next item is to consider adopting ordinance 22-014, which is a text amendment, section 2.22 of the town's development ordinance. Mr. Blunt.
Take a deep breath in. This is a fairly easy one because it's based in logic and not emotion. This is the issue of where murals can go on the walls of buildings in the town of Spencer. It was recognized as an issue when staff came up with the mural restoration program and the plan to put up some new murals in various places. And being the bad guy in the whole situation, I went and looked at the sign ordinance to see if that was allowed, and found out that some of the language didn't actually allow them to put murals where they wanted to. Staff worked together to come up with some possibilities on how to revise the text to make sure that we would get the murals in the right place. What we've come up with is the text that you find in ordinance 22-014 that basically lets them recommend to you where to put the murals and lets you all approve. Y'all get to vote on each one of them to say yes or no, or you can assign that duty to somebody else if you so desire. So we would suggest that you adopt ordinance 22-014.
All right, thank you. Other questions from the board?
I do have a question. In section 3, it says murals must be maintained in good repair by the owner of the building in which they're painted. So are we requiring the owner of the building to repaint that mural as?
That is your current language. That's what it says in the current language. So if you wanted to change that, we could, but that does say that they have to maintain it.
I have a question about it because if we're the ones who are actually painting the murals, is it right for us to ask the owner of the building to maintain it?
If I'm not mistaken, the mural program requires the owner to give permission for these murals to be painted on their walls. The town is finding grant monies and arranging the artists and materials to actually do the painting, but it's only done at the permission of the building owner. So if he doesn't want to take care of the mural, he can say no to the restoration.
And I would say that the idea behind that statement is to prevent an owner from doing something else to the art, that the art is maintained and not, for example, just painted over and blanked out.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none, you have a resolution before you, 22-014. Is there a motion?
I move to accept resolution 22-014 for the town of Spencer.
It's a motion by Ms. Sledge.
I'll second it.
Oh. It's a toss up. We need to flip a coin. We'll give it to Mr. Morgan. All right. All in favor? All right. All opposed? Okay, that is approved. Next is to consider adopting resolution 22-008, which is an economic development grant policy.
You need to share.
It's a little darker than what it's coming. Mayor, members of the board, I come to before in our discussions of economic development in the community and pointed out that most large developments will always ask a community to grant some type of economic development grant program to help them with primarily with the infrastructure cost that goes into building one of these multi-million-dollar projects. So as we started getting input from developers, they obviously were asking the question of us. We came to you and asked if you would support this type of policy. You said you would. We went back and reviewed various communities of various sizes and the county, found that almost all counties and most municipalities of any size offer some type of economic development grant program. The policy that's before you is based almost entirely on the plan that Salisbury and Rowan County have adopted. They did change the lower threshold, raised it up actually a little bit. I think those old numbers are a little out of date, and maybe they'll follow our lead and raise their threshold a little bit. As you probably figured out, it's a fairly simple philosophy. If the company is willing to invest lots of millions of dollars into a project in our town, which will increase the tax base dramatically and increase the tax revenue to the town, what we agree to do is give back some portion of that over some period of time to help them defray the cost of infrastructure. The current economic development client that we've been working with on a major project basically is having to extend water, extend sewer, and pay for a new road. And the total cost of that infrastructure is a little over $3 million. If you approve this program, our program plus Rowan County's program would pay this client back a little less than $3 million over 5 years. So basically, he becomes our bank. We borrow the money from him. It's his money that's going to pay for this over time, not the community's money, not taxes. So a lot of people think of this as corporate greed, but 100% of nothing's nothing. If you don't get the business to move to your community, you don't get any tax increase. With this program, you get some portion of the tax over the first couple of years, and then you get all the tax moving forward from that. You also get the ancillary benefits of support businesses that get built around it. You get the new jobs brought to your community, and you get whatever sales tax revenue is generated by that particular business. I've yet to figure out if distribution warehouses have to pay sales tax. Maybe somebody else knows that, but I haven't figured that one out. On this program, the way it's written, each client would come to us with a request, and it would be a written contract between the town and that client that would spell out all the details of the grant program based on these guidelines. But it would also include the details of what happens if they default, what if they don't meet their goals, the tax base increase, etc. You get the vote to approve each one of those grants. If for some reason you don't think a particular application is a good one, you can vote to turn it down. At any time, you can vote to do away with this program. The grants that are in place at that time are considered contracts, so you got to honor those. But you could do away with it for all future projects if you decide in the future you don't like this program. So if acceptable to you, we would suggest the board vote to adopt resolution 22-008, which would initiate this policy. I'd rather try to answer any questions before my voice goes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blunt. We'll open it up now for questions from the board.
Will there be will there be a phase and a clause in there about the number of jobs they bring as well as how long they will be here? Is that something that's usually included?
There are various programs that have things like that. Orange County has one that actually has about a 60-page program, and it's awarded based on a points scheme where you get a certain number of points for the number of employees, a certain number of points for this, that, and the other, a certain number of points for how high above the average wage level the wages will be. The more complicated the program is, the less predictable they are to your client, to your economic development client. So the majority of the programs that we saw when we did our research were simply based on tax-based generation. And hopefully it comes with jobs. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't, your tax revenue as a town comes from property tax. So it's good to try to hope that people will hire. There are even some that try to promote hiring locally, and that's illegal. You can't do that. So those that are written that way are going to get themselves in trouble. But we propose a very simple program that's based purely on tax-based creation.
Other questions?
More for, I guess, to get the view, but also for those who've been playing along out there at home. There's criticism of these types of things. I've heard some locally seen in the paper where, well, what if they don't stay? Or what if they don't create the jobs they said they would? Or what if they don't do X, Y, and Z? My personal view is they build a 200,000 square foot facility, you still have the 200,000 square foot facility for yourself. What would you say?
Well, I would echo what you say. The project we're working on now is $60 million worth of tax base. Some of that's tied up in conveyor systems and stuff that go inside of this distribution center. But the vast majority of it's the building. And they can move and go to China if they want to, but somebody's going to still be paying property taxes. It may not be 60 million at that point. It may drop to, say, 40 million. At that point, the incentive grant goes away. They don't get any incentives because they didn't follow up their end of the deal. We're still collecting tax revenue on the 40 million or whatever the base cost of the building. And somebody's going to move in there. You don't build $40 million buildings and leave them empty very long.
One of the things I've said is the reality is there can be communities that choose not to do it. Those are the communities where companies are going to go up. Right? It's how the game is played these days to attract that business and tax base. And I think you've got to look beyond even just the property values and property tax revenue. It is creating jobs. It's hopefully bringing people that are going to choose to live near where they work. And beyond that, even hopefully that it will provide additional higher mobility job opportunities for folks that already live here. I see it as an opportunity that people can step up in employment and increase their household income. And so there are too many benefits not to be playing in that arena. And I think that, the criticism has come when you're getting locked into things like 15-year incentive grants and things like that. What Mr. Blunt has proposed is a 5-year incentive grant, which I think is a very reasonable time frame.
It also gives you the ability to say no very easily when they ask for the 15-year grant. You say, we've got an adopted policy, and that's what we're going to give you, nothing more. Something else I was going to mention, but I lost it there.
Does this have any the one that we're talking about now, for an annexation? It's already in our.
It would be an annexation.
It would be an annexation.
Almost all of the big industrial properties would require an annexation. But you passed a policy earlier that said if you extend water and sewer into the EPJ, you get damage. So took care of that. Take that one off you.
No. Question. There's a proposed local bill. Does that
Can I answer that one? It does not.
Okay, I didn't think so.
It is specific to the city of Salisbury. And as I mentioned earlier, with what we passed relative to ours and the conversations that we had with folks at the county and the EDC, what we have done, we've done the right way, and it's supported. And so we're not getting hit.
And the big difference is the annexation policy that you passed said that if somebody builds something in your EPJ, that you have the right to request annexation. Salisbury's reaching a little outside of their EPJ and reaching into disputed areas with other communities, and that's what got the ire of William County up. So, not criticizing them, all municipalities need to grow that tax base, but that's where that bill came from.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion. Yes.
I'd like to move that we adopt resolution 22-008, economic development policy.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? Right, all opposed? That is approved unanimous.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to entertain you tonight. Please be sure to tip your waitress.
Thank you very much. All right, before we move on, I have a giant request. Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah. So moved.
I don't even know whether we have to make a motion, but we'll stay in recess until, well, let's say 8:30. That'll give us about 3 minutes or so. All right, we are back in open session now after a short recess. And we are on item 13 on our agenda. And that is to consider receiving a status update from staff on special projects. And our special project coordinator is joining us by Zoom tonight, Mr. Joe Morris.
Good evening.
Oh, you scared me.
I know you've had a long night, had a lot of great discussion. I've been following very closely, so I'll try to be pretty brief on this. There were two projects that we currently have that we're working on presently that we've made quite a bit of progress on since our last meeting. We wanted to update the board as to their status. The first is the Yadkin River Trailhead project. I know that the board is aware that we did receive the Recreational Trails Program grant in the amount of $100,000 under your consent agenda. You approved the budget amendment, a budget ordinance amendment, receiving those revenues. And so we now have sufficient funds from contributions that we received previously to move forward with the project. I think that Peter mentioned in his city manager's report a Friday or two back that we were proceeding on a timeline, and I just wanted to sort of update the board on the status of that so you'll know how the project will proceed going forward. Essentially, our plan is to begin advertising for bids for that project beginning on June 18th. We will have and I should mention that the bid process is actually managed by our design contractor, Benish. And so Jeff Ashball is spearheading this particular effort, but we will advertise this Sunday, and on June 30th, we'll have an on-site meeting with potential bidders at the project site. Jeff has assured us that he has a list of contractors that he will make sure the bid information is shared with, and so we'll have an opportunity to meet with them on site to answer any questions that they might have about the project. The bid opening is scheduled for July 21st. And so hopefully we'll have a sufficient number of bids, and it will come in under the amount that we have in our budget, and we will be able to proceed. And if that is the case, we would make a recommendation to the board to award a bid potentially at the August 8th meeting of the Board of Alderman. And if we're being a little optimistic about this, but hopefully we can begin construction on or around September 1st. And anticipated construction timeline is 90 to 120 days. And so if that's sort of played out, after the first of the year, we would have the trailhead open. The second thing I wanted to talk about or bring the board up to speed on is the stream flow restoration grant. We received $280,251 for that grant. We are focusing on the section of Grants Creek, basically between Knoxville Avenue and Salisbury, all the way over to 3rd Street to remove the debris that's in the creek along that section. We've been in conversation with Salisbury Road and Utilities about access to the creek by way of the sewer right-of-way that is in that area. We've also been in conversation with Chris Sloot, the Soil and Water Conservation District, and Anna Baumgartner, who is the county purchasing agent director. And so we're hoping to combine our project with some work that's going on in the county. Specifically, we'd like to bid all the sections at one time and hopefully get some competitive bids, and we're still working through that process. I met with Anna and Chris last week, and we're doing a little more due diligence about how that might work and what kind of agreement might need to be put in place. But at this moment, it's on sort of a staff level, and we would certainly come back to our board with a recommendation as to how that might move forward. So that's the status of those two projects, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the board or the mayor might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morris. Are there questions from the board?
Has this type of thing ever been done before? I mean, I know that's in perpetuity in the past is a difficult answer, but I mean, just off the top of your head, have we ever done this before? We being Salisbury, Spencer, etc.
On this on the stream flow restoration grant.
Like clearing the streams, that kind of. Have we ever done that?
And so that's actually part of the due diligence that we're doing now, and I think the short answer is no. But we're trying to figure out how there might be a way that we could potentially bid all of the stream sections as sections together, which hopefully would help us with a more competitive bid pricing for the project. The model that we're sort of toying with now is that the inspections and the management aspects would be the responsibility of Chris Sloop for his sections, and then I would be the in-the-field person for the sections that are adjacent to Spencer. There's a lot of details to work out about that, but I'm certain that an interlocal agreement can be derived, and potentially we could have the town attorney talk to the county attorney, and maybe they can come up with something that would work.
His multiple personalities, right?
On that,
Well, I was going to add to that. Going back, I guess years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers was actually responsible for most of the waterways in the area, maintaining them. And of course, that when funding dried up at federal level, that kind of went by the wayside. All of this new program is a result of really a lot of the flooding that happened down east with some of the hurricanes and everything. But it really became notable to folks in the state legislature that there needed to be money spent on removing this type of debris across the state, because when that debris gets in, it creates blockages that essentially dams up our waterways, and that leads to flooding and erosion and things like that. So we were fortunate enough to get the $280,000. It wasn't the full amount that we asked for, but it's a significant amount that lets us do probably the most important stretch of Grants Creek between Salisbury and Spencer that are causing flooding problems.
I asked that, and I don't want to be, maybe I am the guy at this meeting who's throwing monkey wrenches and everything, but has the Railroad Museum been brought in to that? And the reason why I asked that is, and I think we're still a little north of where some things were important, but I think Mccorkle Avenue is in that area. There were some I believe pretty important historical things occur at Grants Creek. And so I just didn't know if we're digging up stuff around Mccorkle Avenue and North Rowan Museum might want to be involved in that. I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion more than anything.
So my understanding is that for example, the Civil War fortifications that are known are actually adjacent to West End Street, which is further upstream and adjacent to the Goggle College Ecological Preserve. I am not aware of any other historical sites that might be along Grant Street, but I can certainly reach out to the museum to ask for some guidance. This particular program will strictly be limited to removing woody debris from the 100-year floodplain. And so the type of the operation will be essentially a forestry logging operation where equipment will travel, in our case at least, along the Salisbury River Utilities sewer line, and retrieve logs that have fallen into the creek, drag them out. There are a couple of different disposal methods that are available to us. One is chipping in place. Another is burning in place. And then another one would be to haul it out to a centralized disposal site. And that's all, again, that's all part of the deliberations that we're having, working with Chris, and he's reaching out to other soil and water conservation districts across the state to ascertain sort of best practices. There are counties that are doing more of this on an ongoing basis, and so we feel like there's probably some models that we can borrow from. I just don't have all the definitive processes to describe to you. I think we're still on the fly a little bit in terms of our learning curve. Sort of echoing what the mayor was saying about the work that has been done down east. I believe that our state legislators have identified, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but they had many millions of dollars in requests beyond the 38 million that was allocated. And so I think they have identified that there is a pent-up demand for this type of funding and program. And so I anticipate that going forward, this will be a very popular thing over the next many years. And of course, all it takes is one or two hurricanes, and you're right back where you started. So it's an ongoing concern, and we have an opportunity to really make some improvements in the floodway as it affects some of the land area within the town of Spencer.
Joe, I seem to recall that request number was over 300 million for 38 million.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Any other questions for Mr. Morris?
Good job, Joe.
Good job, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 14 is to consider adopting the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance and fee schedule. We did have a public hearing on that earlier this evening, and we have had several budget workshops thus far, and so you do have the budget ordinance before you. And so with that, are there any questions, anything you want to say in regards to that to kick us off, or you want to just go straight into questions?
Well, I would just like to thank the mayor and the board for your guidance on this process, starting back with our planning session, and of course our workshop opportunities. I appreciate all the work staff has put into the process as well, and so we appreciate working with you on this, and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, we'll open it up for questions.
I always have a question.
That's good.
I'm looking at the appendix under the fees and charges, and under zoning permits, and this may be a question from Mr. Blunt. It lists fees for single, two-family structures and mobile homes. Does our ordinance not disallow mobile homes within our jurisdiction? I seem to remember when we were working through that 160D that we were not allowing any mobile homes.
Other questions? All right, hearing none, we will entertain a motion to approve the budget ordinance.
I move to approve the budget ordinance And I think I don't have the number. But for fiscal year 2022.
Okay, it's just, budget ordinance 22-014. All right, there's a motion by Ms. Sledge. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? All right, our budget is set and approved unanimously for the upcoming fiscal year. I'll say thanks very much to Peter and to John and to all of the staff for all the work over the last several months that has gone into putting this budget together. I think there are a lot of exciting things included in this that we look forward to happening over the next fiscal year. So thanks for all of your work.
Thank
you. Okay. Next is item 15. Consider adopting budget amendment ordinance 22-013 for a capital reserve fund.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. In the current year budget, there was a concept of the creation of a capital reserve fund, which would allow us to separate our savings in a sense to specifically plan for current and future capital investments. What you have before you is a budget ordinance to establish that fund, and I appreciate Mr. Softly putting this together for our consideration. This budget ordinance establishes basically that some of the unspent capital items in the current year budget would be able to be a starting place for a capital reserve fund, but it also includes some language policy-wise as what it would look like to continue funding that over time. For example, that the board will consider any addition in excess of $100,000 to the general fund's fund balance at the end of the fiscal year for transfer to the capital reserve and replacement fund. And there's also a threshold in there that transfers to that should not reduce the undesignated general fund balance below the 30% of the current budget year. And so this is a starting place for a process that over time will allow the town to have cash in place for capital projects, whether that be property, buildings, technology replacement, vehicle replacement, etc.
And I'll just add to that, one of the intents is to have this really if things come up, but then also looking forward into developing a capital improvement plan.
Yes.
But this reserve fund, we have seen a need for certain things to come up. Obviously with infrastructure, some of our stormwater drainage, like the failing culverts have had to be been replaced and things like that. So this allows us to better plan for those unexpected things that always do come up each fiscal. So are there questions regarding the capital reserve? All right, hearing none.
I'll make a motion to approve capital reserve replacement fund budget ordinance amendment 22-013.
All right, so there's a motion by Mr. Morgan. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved. Thank you very much. Next is item 16, to consider adopting resolution 22-009 for the interlocal mutual aid assistance with Rowan County Sheriff's Office. And essentially this is extending our current agreement that we had for them for mutual aid an additional 6 months, as was explained last Thursday. Anything else you want to say about that?
I'd be happy to answer any questions. Of course, we did discuss that at the pre-agenda, and we do anticipate the need to be less over the next 6 months than it has been over the previous 6.
All right, any questions?
So this is for an additional 6 months.
Yes, it would allow us to continue to partner with the Sheriff's Office to cover shifts as needed, but again, it would be we anticipate it's going to be at a lower level Just for example, over the first 6 months, our staff have covered about 76% of all the shifts, with sheriff's office roughly covering about 12 shifts every month. And we think over the next months, that'll be more of the 3 to 5 shifts a month. And as we continue to fill in our staff, that will allow us to make that transition.
This is as needed. So if we get to October, we don't need it. We have no obligation.
Correct.
To sign.
Yes, there's no obligation for us to use their services for any amount of time. Typically, about a month in advance, the shifts that we've identified are going to be open are provided to the sheriff's office, and they coordinate the schedule. And so, yes, as that improves and continues to improve, it simply we won't need to make use of the agreement.
Chief Fowle will be able to give an update on staffing and hiring. I know he's making some significant progress there. Other questions?
So with it being a lower level of usage, that means that the amount coming off the bottom line, which is already, pretty much allocated, there will be less funding that will go towards the mutual aid if there's going to be a lower level of usage.
That's correct. We would be using that money to pay our own staff, cover our fuel, and those sorts of things, that instead of paying the cost of services.
Okay, thanks. I know some of the residents were concerned about that as well, so I just wanted to make sure I knew that.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. I mean, pretty much it directly offsets it. So we use less of the sheriff's office. We use more of our own staff.
Awesome.
You've come forward.
Obviously trying to be good stewards of the town's money. As we are able, and it's been very beneficial having the SRO's availability when summer school's not in, but what we've done is reduce the hours on certain shifts that we're utilizing. So I know we keep saying shifts, and everybody's thinking 5 shifts, 7 shifts at 12 hours for the standard shift. We have begun working some of those at 8-hour shifts, which are reduced, just because it helps our availability more to have more 8-hour shifts, save the town money, top that 4 hours off and try to cover it either by myself, Sergeant Leonard, or one of the SROs, or one of our mid-shift cars that comes in and kind of takes that burden off of the sheriff's office. They're tired also, to be quite honest with you. The sheriff's office is overworked. They have more off-duty gigs and more open shifts than what they can cover themselves. So, like last week, when I'm asked to go home early, we let them go home early, which just saved the town 6 hours of pay. But we're still getting the benefit of it. Ultimately, we have to have that safety net, just not knowing what tomorrow may hold. If something bad happens, we have an officer injured, we could be in a really bad situation and may have to need them for longer. And I think that's the intent of putting it in place for 6 months to where we have the availability. We're very hopeful that we're not going to need it for those 6 months. And I'll definitely speak about that a little bit more here this week.
Any other questions? Keep files up here. Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, is there a motion regarding the interlocal mutual aid assistance? I move to adopt as written. The motion by Mr. Howell, second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? That is approved unanimously. Thank you all. And we will now move into our departmental reports. And we'll invite Mr. Blunt forward again.
I'm feeling much better now, thank you.
What's in that blank?
No,
are you getting overtime tonight?
No, I don't get overtime. Department report planning. You've got my report in front of you, so I won't embellish on that any. I'll be glad to answer any questions. The one other thing I would add is that the planning board still needs 2 ETJ members. We had to cancel our meeting last night, I think it was, because we didn't have enough members to make a quorum. So I really need those 2 slots to be filled. They are ETJ positions. If you know anybody that lives in our ETJ that might be interested, please reach out to them. Or if you even have a name, give it to me, a name and a phone number, and I'll track them down myself. Any questions?
Thank you. No, Kyle is taking a much needed time off this week. He's not here, and we also heard from Mr. Osborne during the pre-agenda.
Okay.
Yes. Right. See who's up.
Okay. Very good. Chief Bob?
Good evening again. I first want to start off and just thank, like everybody knows, we had a homicide in town. We were fortunate to make an arrest in under 8 hours, which speaks highly of the cooperative spirit that we have working with these other agencies. So I want to thank Chief Lanning and his guys that responded to the scene, most especially the SBI Sheriff's Office and the City of Salisbury, who actually arrived on scene before I could get here. Which speaks very highly. They called me at home and offered their services 2 minutes after I received my call out. They came straight from the City of Salisbury to back us up, which is definitely a good thing. So I definitely want to thank them in open forum. Myself and Chief Lanning had coffee with the chief this morning. So I think that's something we're going to try to continue in the future. Hopefully we can drum up more citizen participation. We did have a few that walked over and spoke with us, and Mr. Mayor joined us, and we definitely appreciate that.
Y'all need to you need to come out and have coffee with the chiefs, because the company they were keeping today wasn't very good with me.
We were fortunately able to meet Mr. White, who's the new principal of North Rand High School. I believe we're going to have a really good relationship with him. Me and Chief Lanning sat down and spoke with him for about 30 minutes today. So I see very good things coming to our high school this coming year. So definitely there'll be more to come about that as we kind of engage in our meetings with him over the next 2 months before school gets back in. I did provide my standard report. Call volume has remained fairly steady this summertime, so that's to be expected. We are still covering as many shifts as we can cover with our own in-house guys. I know I think Peter spoke 76%. The Capitans, in the perspective, we've been running with less than a half staff and covering more than 3/4. So the guys are tired. We're giving them some vacation. I've got one at Disney right now. I've got 2 getting ready to go to the beach. I'm gonna be following behind them somewhere. So I'm glad they're able to get that. I'm glad everything is panning out. Our recruitment efforts are still high. I will tell you that the market is even more competitive than it's ever been. We have reached out to Rowan Cabarrus, Davidson, Mitchell, and Stanley, and I will tell you, every single student is spoke for before they graduated, which is unfortunate. So we do not have any graduating students come out to reach out to and try to hire at this point. Fortunately, there's a class that will be starting, the fall class. We'll go back in August. So we do have numerous applicants that are looking to go to BLET, so we're exploring that possibility. Those students in that class will graduate in December, which would put them, we've sent anybody through the school, put them hitting our streets about March after their field training program. So that is a little bit of time from now. We do have a few positions that we're looking at, some laterals, which would be obviously a quick turnaround, where once we get them in here, a senior person would go hopefully 1 to 2 months of training, and they would be able to be released. So our hope is to kind of get a little mixture here of laterals and trainees, and hopefully be able to bring them in. And I still have a lofty goal of being full staff on paper by somewhere in September timeframe. Obviously, on paper doesn't mean they can work the street, but it means we would be in the training process with officers that actually work for our city. So I have those lofty goals, and I will definitely answer any questions you may have for me, please.
Questions from the board?
Where does the homicide go on this? Is it top 5?
Initially, it would have came just post this report, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So it will actually be on next month's report.
Okay.
But yes, typically, there's not a separate line for homicide per se, so it's whatever the call is dispatched as. So yeah, next month it would probably show up as a shots fired call, and then it just gets converted in our system after the fact.
Two things. First, to you and to your staff folks, they have done a phenomenal job. Please pass along our thanks and the community's thanks for what they've done. They've made lemonade out of lemons, and so we appreciate that. Definitely. I guess the second question is, you mentioned the recruitment piece, and obviously we're not made of money, but I mean, what do you need from us to give you some tools to go get some folks if you need to do that, next year or whatever?
Continued support. I think we're working good on it. I know. I mean, obviously we have to remember that salary does have to be flexible to maintain the market status. I think that's the most important thing. As other agencies are moving up, if we don't move up at some form of a level, it's going to be hard to maintain what we have and hard to recruit. I think a key is going to be putting people through school. I know that's not something that was necessarily designed to do, is just put a random person off the street through BLET. And it is it's rolling the dice, because you could put a student through BLET that goes in after a month and washes out, at which point they would not have met the obligation. The town would obviously not be obligated to continue their employment. I think that's going to be an important thing in the future, because the market is so competitive right now. Agencies are transitioning to doing that as a rule of thumb rather than as a luxury. My hope is once we get full, we're going to see that our staff stays, and we're not going to have this high turnover rate that we've had previously. So I think we're really in a tight spot right now. I really do feel once we get it full up, aside from retirements, I think most people are going to stay here. I believe we've got more employee satisfaction than we've ever had before right now. I think we've got a lot of good things coming. So I've got a little bit of a restructure plan I know that's been talked about, which is going to allow some growth within the department and give these guys something to work for. Nobody wants to be stagnant at the very bottom rank for their whole career. So if we don't give it to them with the ability to write their own book, they're going to look elsewhere for it. But yeah, I really think the BLET program is going to, and the ability to put students through school is going to be, that's going to be our saving grace right now, I think. Obviously, we have a problem. We've got more BLET applicants than what we would even have the ability to train. Weston, I want to say we've just received our 5th, I believe, person that has showed a desire for us to put them through school. Even if we had the funding, we couldn't put 5 people through school, because they would all come out at the same time, and we don't have the staff to train 5 at once. So 2 is about our magical number. That's about the number we can maintain. So if we send 2 students through school, when they come out, we could pair them with field training officers and actually get them out in that same 2 to 3 month period. Anything more than that, it would delay the training so much that it would really not be beneficial to the agency. Yeah, definitely. Any support the board. As long as the board supports that, we definitely appreciate it.
I have one question. Have you talked to Jim Mosier or his wife about a couple of incidents involving juveniles that live in the 600 block on 6th Street and Yakin Avenue, and regarding their building and some patrons that are attending their music school?
I don't believe so. I've spoke to Jim recently, but I don't believe he mentioned anything about that. So I'll try to reach out to him and see what's going on with it.
Yeah, they're having some problems. Also vandalism, and it seems to be in that area.
Okay. Definitely. We'll take a look at that. I do know there was and the board may have heard complaints of this. There were complaints about juveniles with guns. We did speak with them twice now. They're airsoft guns. They have orange tips on them. So we don't want to kill their fun, but we advise them not to be shooting in the roadway. So it's probably a bad idea to be out there shooting in the roadway. But if the board has heard that chatter, those are not real guns. That was in the same area you're speaking of, so it may actually be some of the same individuals involved, of course.
What's the update on the citizen advisory?
We actually meet next Wednesday, so that'll be the first meeting after I was officially appointed. So I think we're kind of in a building process right now. We're still looking for additional members. I believe the cap on that, Peter may have to correct me, I believe it's 9 members. Is the cap on it, so we're nowhere near the cap right now. We've got the minimum met, but we're not near the cap. So if anybody knows any good members you'd like to send, we definitely could stand to have a few more. obviously we have big plans. We're going to invite them to the August event we do out here for National Night Out, and hopefully I'll strum up some additional support. I think they've got big plans for what they want to do in the community too. We're trying to partner with them best we can. It's a slow process, but we're going to be moving fast now.
Other questions? Thanks for all you're doing. Y'all stay safe.
Take care.
Stay safe.
All right. Next is Chief Lanning with our fire department report.
Mayor and board, good afternoon again.
It's past afternoon.
It's been a long day.
I was foolish enough not to eat before I came, so if you've been hearing my stomach back there, I apologize. So Chief Powell hit on it. I'm gonna hit on that first. We did meet with the new principal of the high school today, and kind of expressed to him the same thing that my hope is to do at the elementary school and middle school. Years past, our presence in those schools has been not as good. Truth be told, we go by one day for Fire Safety Week at the elementary school, and that was it. And so we're currently in the process of revamping our pub ed program for elementary and middle school, making it age appropriate, kind of reach them on their level. And I spoke with the principal. What I wanted to do with the high school is work with them to create some sort of a mentorship. That, you know, there are kids that can't afford college. But if they come to us while they're in high school, begin to learn a trade, come to love this job, which would be amazing. Two things. One, they seek employment. Two, we may hire them. So it's a win-win for us to give kids in the community, however many that may be, something positive. There may or may not have positive role models. Update on our grants. We have heard nothing from the $35,000. I did reach out to the state last week. They have not received money from the legislature, so money is just kind of in holding. As of Friday, the SAFER grant, FEMA has not awarded any of those, so we're still waiting on that. I did kind of look back over the past couple of years, just looking that the first week in July is normally that first week, and then it's every Friday until they exhaust all their funds. Smoke alarm canvas, did that June 4th prior to the event at 8th Street. We installed 14 detectors. Of those, 9 of those homes did not have working detectors prior to. Again, I know the mayor spoke this morning. We try to put so much out on social media. I guess you can argue, is it really effective or not? My hope was that I would have a whole list that morning of me and my staff that could install these detectors. We had nobody call, nobody message. And so we were it was a shot in the dark where we went. Obviously, if their doors were open, we stopped. Some people were very welcoming, some were not. I think they kind of thought they were in trouble. Not sure. But so regardless, there's still 14 detectors, so it's still a success. Again, thanks for coming this morning. I appreciate it. And then I want to encourage all of you to attend Saturday fire truck show. I'll get there at 9 before it gets miserably hot. But we'll be there providing medical standby as well as sub ed to the field. So, have any questions for me? Go ahead.
Any questions?
And last thing, thank you for the adoption of the budget. Especially for me, what I inherited when I walked in the door versus what my budget is going into next year is drastic change. Thank you for your support of me and all of the people.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
I've got Chief. I've got 2 things. Yep. One, I guess, related to getting the word out about stuff like that. And yeah, this goes back to a comment Sam made earlier and some of the comments relative to the whole restriping plan and how we get the word out and everything. You know, one of the suggestions I might have is when we're doing events like the smoke detectors, if we consider the door hanger option. But I almost wonder if the door hangers, if it's easier for us to run them when we're doing trash collection, pop them on the trash can, and that way, folks, when they go to wheel their trash cans in, see them.
I see it.
Well, we tried that with Spencer Cares.
Yeah.
We not have, of course, the folks working on trash itself couldn't really be responsible for that, and so there was just a handful of.
Well, that's why you and I ride along.
That's right. We need to get more people involved in that process. But it was, they found it to be labor intensive. But there could be ways to. I think doing things on doors may work better than the carts, because some people maybe would disregard it, but we thought with that event, given the nature of it, it was fitting on the trash. But certainly, we're open to any and all ideas. And we talked earlier today about some ideas, even going back to social media. I think there's some tactics around events that we can do to make sure the reach is optimized.
Yeah, I did have the citizen ask why we didn't do a postcard mail. Yeah, instead of like the door hang. I don't know.
Well, and yeah, it's interesting because you got that, but then you got folks saying they're not getting the mail. So, so it's definitely something that we're making improvements on, but we still have a ways to go with it. So continual improvement. The other thing, and is Chief Powell still here? Can you come forward, please? Yeah. So this is a difficult topic, but it's something I think is incredibly important. And since you brought up having met with the high school and meeting with the schools and being more present with some of the things that have happened, especially in Uvalde, Texas, recently. We've got 3 schools here within our community, which is a lot. Heaven forbid anything ever happen. But should anything ever happen, I want to be absolutely certain that our response in those situations is not questioned like it has been questioned in some of these other areas. And I firmly believe that one of the ways you do that is by doing drills. And you do live drills in those schools to become intimately familiar with where access points are, where hideout places could be, and those sorts of things. I think, it really hit close to home for me because my wife was at Catawba when all of that happened. And, that was a situation, nobody expected it to happen, but it happened. And I want to be sure that our response folks, they know exactly what to do, but there's no question. They know exactly what they need to do, how they need to react. But not only our folks, the folks elsewhere in the county that are going to be responding. So my request of you would be for y'all to reach out for some interagency drills. Summer's a great time to do that. So y'all know exactly, and everybody's familiar. My charge to you, though, is also to get the school system involved, because my biggest concern is the reunification process. Because we need to run that show if it ever happens. And we need to make sure the school system knows what they do. I don't want them coming in to act like they run the show, because they do these things and talk about them and they think they know, but we need to be the ones that lead that process. And I hope and pray we never, ever have to deal with it. But should we have to deal with it, I want to make sure that our folks know exactly what to do so our response is prompt and so that we minimize any casualties. And I know it's an incredibly difficult thing to talk about. Incredibly difficult. But it's when we don't have these conversations that the bad stuff happens and we're not able to respond correctly.
And I don't want to jump to what we're talking about doing next month. Mayor Pro Tem asked for a kind of an update on school security, so I'll probably have a lot more next month. But we did kind of discuss that today. The problem is in a lot of these schools, there's too many different names for hallways, and somebody calls it ninth grade hall, and somebody calls it this, and somebody calls it by a classroom number. And the problem is, even an officer that walks around that building daily, in the heat of the moment when they're charging in to go after a bad guy, it's hard when you're getting screamed at 3 different locations, even if they're really the same location. So we actually talked to Mr. White today about getting us an updated map, and that's something we're going to reach out to all the schools on, just so, because historically we have not been updated every year on where they move teachers, because they move teachers every year. It's just, we have the map that is in our go bag that tells us where classroom 124 is. And this hallway has its name, but we don't necessarily know who's assigned to that room. So that's something we're working on, and we actually discussed. Mr. White really reached out and wanted to know if we could do a large-scale event this summer. I will tell you, I've been part of that, fortunately, twice. in Iredell County. They do a phenomenal job, probably the best event I've ever seen, and they do the full process like what you're describing. It's down to transporting individuals that are victims to hospitals, so they tie in the hospital, EMS, fire, rescue squad, and multiple agencies. It is a massive undertaking. They usually plan 8 to 10 months in advance, I believe. It's kind of the planning process. So we're actually at the planning process for next summer. So we're going to do a reduced event that's just going to be kept in-house, I think, for this summer is kind of what our plan is. And it's important because we've got new officers, plus we have officers. As you know, sheriff's office is working with us. So we're going to do kind of a reduced event right now. Next summer, I anticipate a big event. So I'm going to be pulling on a lot of town staff because we actually need role players. We need able-bodied people that can help us out in the event. It is, if you ever get a chance to go watch a really big event, and if I find out Iredell County is doing it again, I will invite myself to it. I'm sure the sheriff will let us come just to witness it. Reunification is probably, everybody thinks going to get the bad guys the hardest part. No, controlling the parents that are trying to storm the school is the hardest part.
Yeah.
So that is a massive undertaking, and it will be all hands on deck. It does not matter what your job title is.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. I think that reunification process, especially at the middle and the elementary school, with all the woods that are out there, becomes really, really complex.
Legitimately, when you hear about
you
parents
guys don't
coming out of the
already
woods,
have a preliminary SOG regarding something like that, probably need to work on it.
We, unlike anywhere else in the county, we have elementary, middle, and high school right there in close proximity to one another. We're the only place that has all three.
Yeah. And the good thing is we do have a good work. I don't want to downplay the working relationship we have with the school system on their safety team, nor with the other agencies. So we kind of have, we already have that kind of in place. The problem is everything on the book looks great until it really happens. So heaven forbid it would ever happen. We have that in place. And fortunately, I don't want to Monday morning quarterback what we see on the news media, but I will tell you, every officer in this agency, every officer in this county is trained. You don't wait. We're not standing at the door. So we're going in whether you're going by yourself or you go in with 10 of you. So I know we've seen that on the news multiple times where officers have been ordered by either negligence or by somebody else's best thought to wait for backup. We don't wait. We're going. So as far as getting into the schools, we would be in there. The real trouble comes afterwards. Like you say, when you say coming out of the woodwork, parents will be coming out of the woods. They will be parking. They'll walk. They'll storm the school. They'll be coming in open doors. So yes, it is a mess. And it really hit home the first time we ran a full scale event, and I was part of it. I was actually assigned to the reunification area, and they intentionally made doors, left them unlocked to see if we would find them. We have parents storming from all over the school. You just have random parents coming up a hallway trying to get into the reunification area. So it's very eye opening when you do it. Obviously, if it ever happens, heaven forbid, it would be even worse. Even the best training is not the real thing. But we really do have a good staff here. Me and Chief Lanning work real good together, and that's going to be very important because it takes that cooperative spirit. Yes, I will definitely be calling on everybody here when we get that event planned. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next is our Public Works report. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
All of our services are running on schedule. Just want to let you know that the garbage guys today and tomorrow will be running at 6 instead of at 7. Trying to dodge a little bit of that afternoon heat with the guys out there. We'll take that into effect. Looks like next week may be the same. So we don't run chippers or anything like that at 6 o'clock in the morning in the neighborhood. But so if you hear the garbage truck coming just a little early, that's the reason. Trash will be one day late for the July 4th holiday, so it falls on a Monday, so that week will just be shifted one day. We had great success with the Spencer Cares event both days. Ms. Sledge announced. We helped a lot of people and we picked up a lot of stuff. So we actually finished up the last house yesterday. She was at home, so we got that one taken care of. So it's done. If you haven't noticed, the lights in the parking lot are up, working, and the pavement has been fixed. So all of that project has been completed. We have been working diligently on a drain line on Carolina Avenue. It started out at 10 feet, then it went to 20, and now we're up to about 35 feet of line that we have replaced. It was a failed piece of pipe. I'm guessing when it was installed, either it was a bad piece of pipe because it was two complete joints, one to the other, and the bottom was completely split. So we just kept following it back till we found solid pipe. So it has been installed, it's working, functioning properly now, and we're in the process of backfilling and getting Miss Clement's yard back together like it's supposed to be. So it's taken a little longer, but we traced it all the way back. We didn't want to have to go in there again. So it's been fun to do. We have hired Dakota Wilhelm as our new sanitation worker. He lives on 3rd Street, so he is from here in town. Local guy, and he's been with us 4 weeks. Is that right? 4 to 5 weeks he's been with us. So and he's doing a great job. So everything's working out with that. One other thing, too, the CCAP. I talked with Cindy and Chris today. Got some dates, and hopefully next week we will get that scheduled and get back with those landowners. We're ready to move forward with this and get it taken care of. And the last thing, the bus shelter. I spoke with Shelton. He has informed me, actually almost promised me that I would have this concrete in before the end of the month, so we can get that bus shelter put up on the upper end of town. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
One question on bus shelters is, have you had a chance to reach out to Rodney Harrison of Salisbury yet to confirm? I know they're going to be doing their new pilot program on the route that comes through East Spencer and Spencer with the microtransit pilot. And I'm not sure how that's going to impact pickups per se.
Okay. I'll reach out to Rodney and talk to him.
Just want to make sure we're not putting something in a location.
Right. That may be changed.
That may be changed.
Correct. Okay.
Other questions? I'll say thanks for all the work at the Spencer Cares event. I know your crew put in, we had a lot of volunteer hours put in, but I know y'all put in a ton of work to make that happen. What I've seen, the folks, at least the little bit I got to help with, the folks that we helped earlier, that was beneficial.
Very much so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is our finance report. Peter, anything you want to say on that?
You do have the materials there, and of course we're getting close to closing out the year, and again appreciate the budget process and where we're heading into the next year.
Any questions on finance report? All right, hearing none. Stacy, anything on the library?
Good evening, Mayor and board members. I'd like to say, on behalf of the library, the summer reading program started on yesterday at 3 o'clock. The theme that they're doing is Discover Your Superpowers, and each week on Tuesdays at 3, she has invited a local person to come in and speak with the youth that are there at the reading program. And again, the library would like to thank everyone and all the local volunteers that were there, and Central United Methodist and Newcastle Street Home for the support and collaboration that occurred on last month.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much. That concludes our departmental reports. And Peter, we'll turn it over to you for the town manager report.
Thank you again, Mayor and members of the board. I'd like to certainly note that, and it's become obvious, and hopefully folks, if they're tuning in, they appreciate it, but we do have Mike File as our new police chief. that was announced after that was announced getting towards the end of May, but we appreciate his interest in this role and continuing his career to lead the Spencer Police Department. He brings quite a bit of experience to the role here and from here and elsewhere. He has a passion for service. He embraces the department's role in partnering with the community, and he has a vision for a two-way relationship to do that. And so, again, congratulations to him, and looking forward to working with him in this capacity going forward. We do want to highlight a few events coming up. Of course, we've got the monthly Cruising Spencer series on the 4th Saturday from 2 to 6. The first one was in May, so we'll have another one this month, and that'll continue through October. And a special event coming up at the Transportation Museum on July 2nd. There is going to be a fireworks show that is going to be the museum grounds will be open to the public, I believe, starting at 7 p.m. with fireworks at 9:15. So we are working with the museum on logistics related to that as well.
That's free of charge to Spencer residents.
Correct. That's correct. It's open to the public starting at and no cost to enjoy that, and so looking forward to that.
And also making sure that Spencer residents know that there are going to be fireworks at that time so that they're not surprised. That was one thing we talked to Kelly Alexander about.
Yep. And so we'll continue to get the word out on that. Our summer newsletter is should be in the mail anytime. We've posted that on the website this week, so it is available that way as well. We'll get that posted on our social accounts as well. And, at this time, I'd like to invite Sky to come up. She wanted to provide an update on the mural restoration project, a little bit following up on the action you took earlier. And of course, Sky, one thing I'll say before she starts is we really enjoyed Sky working with us as our lead from North Carolina fellow. Her service year with us ends June 30th, but the good news is she'll be back for another year starting in August. So we won't see her in July. She's going to have some time off, which is good for her. But Sky, thank you for everything you've done over this last year, and looking forward to the next one. But you can go right ahead into your comments.
Great, thank you, Peter. Good evening, Board of Aldermen. So a couple updates for the vintage mural restoration programs. All 4 of 5 of the locations that are slated for vintage mural restoration have been signed and secured today to sign the follow-up MOUs just this evening. So we are now just waiting on one location to sign their MOU. It is the Mary Mays location that's currently undergoing being sold. So that's currently in limbo. So we're waiting on that one. But our restoration artist Earl should begin her painting in July. So we're still waiting on her official schedule, but that is when the first of the restoration begins. So that's going pretty well on the vintage restoration front. On the new mural project, one of the issues we've been working with in the last couple of months is where to place the citizen recommendation body that I've developed. The original plan that developed out of conversations with the group Spencer Partnership was to place the group as a non-governmental group under that organization. But recently, over discussions we've had, it's become apparent that that isn't a situation that's going to work out. To apply for the grants to fund this program, there is a great deal of financial record keeping that needs to be had. And the Spencer Partnership, just due to the programs they have in mind, they don't plan to do a formal audit in the upcoming future, which would be necessary for the new mural program that I'm trying to fund. So other options we considered was creating a subgroup of the Community Coherence Commission. That would require several changes to the CAC's rules of order, which would seem a bit unnecessary for simply a one-off group. So to balance the need for oversight, citizen recommendation, and efficiency, we've come to the conclusion that a citizen independent group that they would be a citizen independent group that would advise me as a staff member to provide the Board of Aldermen recommendations for these new murals. That seems to be the solution that balances the needs for efficiency, oversight, and citizen input. That is and I will hopefully be bringing a list of grants that I plan to apply for to fund this project to you at the next meeting. That is the update I have for you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions?
Were there any questions?
So you will be coming to see us in July, even though you're not working.
I will be coming in briefly, but I'm not here.
Okay.
Well, thank you for everything you've done this year. You have really added a lot.
Of course, thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing you one day in July.
In July.
And then back again in August.
Right.
Thank you, Scott. All right. With that, we are at the point of requesting comments by the mayor and board members. And so we will start. Ms. Sledge, if you have any comments or updates for us.
Just a reminder of the feeding schedule for the summer program funded by the USDA nutritional program at Central Methodist Church, Monday through Friday. Be there at 11 o'clock to get your meal, and then come tomorrow for the bread riot produce giveaway, and then again on the 29th of June. That's a Wednesday. I think other than that, I just want to say thank you to everybody that worked so well together at the Spencer Cares event. Very worthwhile.
Thank you. Mr. Muhammad?
Good evening again. First of all, I want to thank the residents that were here and the ones that are still here this evening for attending the meeting, and look forward to you all attending further meetings and, chiming in via comments, verbally or written. And I know Chief Fowl had made a statement during his report in reference to the homicide that took place, but I wanted to just give regards in reference to the family of the slain young lady, and it's very tragic. I know we don't really have too much sad, information like that in this area, but again, I just wanted to send a deep condolence and sympathy out to that family and all those that are involved. And I do want to thank the police department, the fire department, and all the surrounding agencies that did respond that day, and they handled everything in a very professional mannerism. And other than that, thank you for all the hard work and dedication that all the departments, staff of the town, as well as the mayor and members of the board here.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Mayor Britton?
I want to thank everyone who came forward tonight for public comment. It means a lot when citizens show up and tell us what they think, and we do ponder and listen to all of it, and then weigh our options and vote according to how we feel like we need to vote. And the next thing I wanted to mention, I was very proud of our board because I thought we reached a good compromise with the Restrike. Thank you, Andy, for making that motion, and I think we need to do these too.
Yeah, I think we need to keep him here.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Well,
we don't want to taint,
we don't want
to taint him in DC. Mr. Morgan?
I would like to reiterate what Rashid and Patty said about the public coming forward. I still think that there are better ways or more ways that we can get the word out to our public, and we need to work on that. There's some people that aren't interested in anything that we do, but there are others that are, and others that sometimes feel left out because they don't get the word. So I think that going forward, we need to work on that. To double up what Peter has already said, one of the things in events planning that I've been trying to do is get things started again in terms of our events, and I think we've been very successful with that. I would like to, somewhere along the line, sit down and either with staff. I think that it would serve this community well to look long and hard at a summer recreation program for our children again, and also revisit the possibility of putting a community building, or find a place where the community could meet, whether it's the upper floor of the old library or some other facility. I think that is needed. I think that would go a long way to help connect more of our citizens. And again, thanks to all the staff. Even though I disagree with some of the things, I know that there was a lot of hard work that went in and effort that went into everything that was covered tonight. I'd like to thank Sky for her work on getting the mural committee up and running. I know that we hit a couple of roadblocks, but I look forward to the day when some of these bleak old walls around our community are covered with beautiful art, which will help entice, again, more amenities for our community. So, thank you again.
Mr. Al? Yeah, just a couple quick things. First, I told Joel this, I think last time we met or a few weeks ago. I'm gonna say it out loud in the public fora that your folks pick up everything I put on the side. I don't know if they're supposed to, but they do. It's me. I don't even think you knew where I lived until we had a conversation about it a week or two ago. But your folks are always outstanding. So I really appreciate what they do. I think along those lines, we're talking about the cleanup day, and my son's had a great time doing that. I'm gonna just beat on the drum that I have at a couple meetings that just emphasizes that there are folks in our community who they want to improve the exterior view of their home, or how things look, or how things are arranged. They just need the, I'm not going to say the push, but they need the support. They need the hand behind them. And I think as much as we can do both in our budget, both with our staff and our other programs and our organizations here in town, that there are folks who want that help. I know the man beside me beats that drum a lot. He's absolutely right. But that starts with us, and again, not pushing people to it, but having a hand behind them, saying, "Hey, we'll help you get there." Another thing, in talking with some folks about a lot of the things we talked about tonight, I actually was speaking with one of the folks I work with up in Davidson, and he's involved with the Jackson River project. Not that project. He's involved with the park over there, and he's well aware of what we were doing over here with the Jackson trail and everything, and said, please keep it up. That he really appreciated what we were doing as a town and as a community. Even though I don't think he comes very often, not even from here. But I just want to share that. Briefly, I just want to give a shout out to the 8th Street folks. I could not come. I don't know if I'm wearing tennis shoes because my foot is all kind of jacked up. Medically, I just might as well take my antibiotics. So I'm working on that. But I was with you in spirit. I need to get out there and get a cheeseburger. I haven't got one from the park in a while. So I know naming it for Skip and Willie, it's well deserved, well earned. It should have been done years ago. So kudos to everyone involved. And to piggyback on what Mr. Muhammad said with the victim down here with our unfortunate homicide, she actually was a band student at North. My dad had her in middle school and high school. I haven't seen her in many years, but she was a nice kid, and that's a true tragedy on an epic scale. And I don't want to weigh in too heavily on the more broad implications of that type of event, but I would just say that let's all maybe put down our armor and our about how we feel about issues involving the kinds of incidents that happen there, and reach a solution that maybe benefits us all. I'll just leave it at that. I think that'd be.
I really don't have any additional comments. You've said it all tonight. I guess the only thing I'll close with is it is a pleasure to work with each of you on this board, with each of you on this staff. I would put our staff up against anybody, and it is a pleasure to work alongside you for our citizens and business owners. So thank you all. Thanks for your time tonight, the great insight and input, and working together through some tough issues that ultimately move our town forward. So thank you all. With that, we have reached the end of our agenda unless there is a need to go into executive session. All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
A motion by Mr. Morgan to
I'm
adjourn.
hungry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right. All opposed? All right, we stand adjourned.
All right.